Hey, and welcome to Just Play's review of the Battletomes for Warhammer Age of Sigmar's Hedonites of Slaanesh and Daughters of Khaine. Today we're going to be getting into all the Warscrolls, all the Allegiance abilities, everything you need to know about these two great new Battletomes that are releasing right now as I'm speaking. If you enjoy what you listen to, please, give us a like, subscribe, give us a mention in the comments and what have you. And if you haven't ordered any of your models yet, well, considering they've just gone live a minute ago, you can do at justplaygames.uk. So I'm Richie, and this is Ian.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Thanks for joining us for our very first live stream review of these Battletomes and that. We've got a lot of plans for our YouTube channel, so like I said already, definitely subscribe, and there's loads of cool stuff coming up. We're going to start off with the Hedonites of Slaanesh.
Yeah.
Now, Ian has delved into this one particularly deep. I've obviously both read both the books, so Ian's going to take a bit of a lead here talking about the Hedonites of Slaanesh. I think these are probably some of the best models that we've seen in a very long time. I think that's a lot of people's opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was, I played Slaanesh when they got the new Battletome last year, and sort of over lockdown as well. I've been quite interested in like getting back into them, painting them a bit, finishing the army I started. And so yeah, when all these new models came up to look at, new range coming out and all that, I was like super impressed and amazed. And yeah, they're just absolutely incredible. Like so much detail. They look fantastic. The dice are really good as well, which we're looking at on screen right now. They've also got really nice dice, and they're like
everyone loves banging on the dice, don't they? They've got,
but these ones are like actually usable. It's like I don't know if maybe lockdowns affected the production capacity of unusable dice or something. I don't know, but we've got good dice now as well. So yeah, incredible range. Really looking forward to chatting about them and seeing what they can do.
So where are you going to start us off?
Well, we'll start at the beginning, I guess. So obviously this book, most factions in Age of Sigmar have only ever had one book. There's not a lot of factions that have had more than one, unless you Stormcast, in which case you've had 18 or something. So it's partly like the book is like an update to the old book. So a lot of the things are actually the same. And obviously,
I think it's important we manage our expectations of these books, isn't it? Now, like, they are updates, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and that's why I say, like, if you're expecting a whole new Battletome with everything completely changed, that's not what we're getting. And you may have opinions on that. Like I'm a big fan of thinking that if things aren't that good, then they should be changed wholesale. So, for me, I would rather see lots of change. And that's not what we're getting, but we are getting tweaks and some changes to the way it works. And when this army come out, it was very broken. It was probably the most broken army Age of Sigmar's ever seen of all them very broken armies that we've seen at different times. So obviously this one's
unless you go really silly far back. I think in the modern game, this is the absolutely
yeah. So that needed to not happen again, right? So so let's talk about the allegiance abilities. Now this is where the faction was broken last time, was the allegiance abilities, pretty much. So locus of diversion is the Slaanesh thing, and previously this stopped the unit fighting until the end of the combat phase on a 3+ if you were a greater demon. So it was pretty much very powerful, and then it was later nerfed and changed to a 4+ to be a lot less reliable. Now that's quite a big blow for them, because one thing that is consistent in the Slaanesh book still now, nothing's particularly tough for its points, and so you needed that to stop your models getting killed. So they've got a new version of it now. Now what this does, so this is demons again. So and I apologize for looking down. I'm going to be doing this all through the show. I'm going to be looking at the book as we're talking, so we're in sort of semi-man reads book mode. I apologize. So new locus of diversion starts at the end of the charge phase. Sorry, same as it used to be. For a model within 1 inch of a demon, Hedonite demon hero. They've cleaned up the wording a little bit, so it's just Hedonite now. And everything with the Hedonite in the book, by the way, all of the mortals and demons. But this is Hedonite demon heroes on a 4+. The unit can't make a pile in this phase, right? And we've had a few abilities that have come out like that sort of recently, and there's been some around for a long time, like the Ideneth Deepkin spell that makes people only pile in 1 inch. And I don't know that it's always been quite
particularly sharks right now have highlighted it.
Yeah, sharks. Yeah, I don't think it's always been quite understood just how good this actually is. Because and this goes off on a 3+ if you're a great demon as well. So if you get into the correct position on a unit, even if it's a unit your opponent has, maybe put in a block so it doesn't have to pile in or something like that. If you get into the corner of a square position unit, and particularly if you obviously get into the edge of a strung out unit, this ability is like you can't fight. Like the 3 guys who are in contact are not going to do an awful lot in most armies. This ability is almost your unit doesn't get to fight. So in a lot of ways, this is actually better than the original Locus, because the original Locus still let them fight just at the end of the turn. It's obviously worse against like single heroes on a monster, because it just does nothing against them, because it might stop them attacking with some 1 inch melee attacks if you attack them from 2 inches away.
It's not just a charge, right? Like obviously if you charge and you've ended up within half an inch, but when a fight's developed and maybe you've got lots of models or one model's within half an inch and the rest of the unit's strung out, so it's like at max 2 and they've got a 1.
It's
got big plays.
It also works against them as well. So when they charge you, of course, if they're not correctly positioned or if you get a chance to do things in between, it makes big differences. So
how many times you made the charge in and you need the pile-in to actually do any damage with it,
you charge 1 unit and pile in or around to get into another important unit or whatever. This does so much. This is better than the original Locus. Like no two ways about it. Some situations where it's mildly worse, but mostly just better. Because playing Slaanesh, what you had to play for previously was you hit stuff so hard that there's nothing left by the time it gets to go. And to be fair, they could do that, but keepers and the things you used to do it with didn't quite hit hard enough a lot of the time. And if you fluffed your rolls on your 2 goes that you got, a lot of the time your keeper would just die afterwards. This is just not happening at all. So this is super powerful, and this is a buff. They keep their euphoric killer's ability, which is if you roll a 6 to hit in melee. So those shiny new archers we're going to talk about a bit don't get it, unfortunately. First thing I checked. If you roll a 6 to hit, you get 2 hits, which is really good. And then if you're a unit of 20 or more models, you get 3 hits on a 6. So that's unchanged from the way it used to be. And then the big change is...
This wasn't for everyone before, right? This was just for Demonettes before, am I right? Or
no, it was all models. It was all models before. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've cleared up the word now. It's just Hedonite on everything now, which is just the book. And then the last thing is the depravity generation. So obviously this was a very, very big problem when the army came out, because if you killed the keeper, they got another one, or whatever. It was a bit dodgy. It was nerfed to be a bit worse, and now it's changed again completely. So the way it works now is at the end of the battle shock phase, so both players' turns, you get 1 depravity point for every unit on the battlefield that had a wound or a mortal wound allocated to it and not negated. So if you wipe a unit out, you don't get anything. But if anything takes any damage whatsoever, you get a depravity point. And obviously, this is only important in the context of the depravity table. But it's quite interesting now. So for 6 points, you get 10 Demonettes, which is the thing you're going to summon with 6 points quite a lot, or 5 Seekers maybe. And then we go up to 7 points, we get Exalted Chariots. Now, an Exalted Chariot is worth quite a lot more points than a Demonette unit. So those things that you can summon for 6 are actually quite bad economy-wise. You don't really want to be doing that. But 7, we go straight up to Exalted Chariots. 8, we go up to Bladebringer Herald on a Hellflayer. 9, we go up to Bladebringer Herald on an Exalted Chariot, which is a 250-point unit. Overcosted, but it's a big jump up. 6 to 8, you go from 10 Demonettes to a big, impactful character. And then at 10 points, you get 20 Demonettes. 12 points, you get 30, or a Keeper of Secrets. So if you imagine your average turn in Age of Sigmar, where everything's fighting, not always turn 1, but certainly turn 2,
Mm-hmm.
You're easily going to generate, probably in most turns, particularly if you're splitting, some spells, some shooting onto different units to make sure lots of things get damaged. You probably generate 12 depravity points on turn 2 most games, just in the combat, and probably again on turn 3 or close.
And there's some extra layers to this when we get into the hosts as well, isn't there? Sorry, what they called it. Yeah, the different hosts.
Yeah. So I think overall, and you summon at the end of the movement phase. So the big change here is if turn 1's not a big fight, which it may be because Slaanesh are very fast, but if turn 1's not a big fight, you're probably generating most of your depravity on turn 2 and summoning stuff on turn 3. So that can be a little bit late, sort of, in Age of Sigmar. But on the other hand, the way it works is the turn after both armies engage, you're summoning a Keeper of Secrets or 30 Demonettes. That's the rough takeaway from it. And that is certainly not as powerful as the original way this was. And if things get wiped out, you don't get anything, which is the real kick in the teeth. But you can obviously up it by doing various things. So they are going to summon most games. If they go to turn 5, you'll still see this army summoning 2 Keeper of Secrets and that kind of stuff. Or even one of my favorites on this table that's not the Keeper or 30 Demonettes. For 9 points is the Bladebringer Herald on Exalted Chariot, which is a very, very good model. It's too expensive in points in this book, but it's very, very powerful. It's got a lot of raw damage, it casts spells, etc. So overall, Allegiance abilities for me buffed.
Yeah, really I do as well, and I really like the summoning and what they've done with this one. I like it's like just end of the turn. It's end of both people's battle shock phases, right? You reading it like that? Yeah. So
both people's it's the battle shock phase.
The battle shock phase, yeah. So I really like that. I like that. There's no messing around like hero phase nonsense. I'm gonna do run over me fellas with endless spells. I'm gonna trick a way to get it. Right, this is gonna happen. End of the turn. Here it is. Next turn, deal with that. I like it. Then it goes on to your opponent, and your opponent's like, he's managed to get himself to 7. Where am I going to engage here? How many more depravity am I going to give him? So I think there's quite a few decisions back on the opponents to try and manage that. That was there before, but just different now.
Yeah,
I like that it brings a decision into the game about MSU or not. We already had the decision about how many drops you wanted to be. But I like it here. If this book was, really good, and like say one of the lists I've played where I've took 3 Aether Wing units, I'm like,
but they've got to take damage and not die though. That's the thing. But if you have got that, if you can take some archers and just plink one shot into, or enough shots that no matter how many hit, the unit doesn't get wiped out. You fire 2 shots into an Aether Wing unit or something, you just farm depravity off people.
Well, exactly right. They've got good shooting units that they never had before. Their endless spells are really good. Like particularly the mirror that we always had. The mirror comes out, it affects heroes.
Same as it was. Yeah,
exactly. Same as it was. Affects heroes, does damage, probably doesn't kill heroes, but gets you depravity. And then on their turn, they've got all that decision making about moving away, and how it done mortals if you don't, move closer, which again is more depravity in your opponent's turn. So I really like.
Very good. The other thing I like about this
numbers, right? Will they summon too much stuff? I'm not there on that.
We'll take that in the context of the whole book by the time we get to the end of this. I think the other thing I like about it as well to point out is the thing I never liked about the way this worked was it was like I was building a Khorne army when this book first came out. We've talked about this before. We haven't been on the air for quite a long time now, and I had a bunch of Wrathmongers, and they're 3 wound models. And in the old context, that was like every model gave away 2 depravity points.
Yeah.
Whereas 1 wound models gave away nothing. And it was like random what you played against, how much depravity you were going to get from the fighting. So you had to build Slaanesh armies to generate depravity from your own models taking wounds and from you killing their big stuff and everything. And it wasn't great. Now it just always works. Whatever you're playing against, you're getting some depravity.
Yeah, I preyed on Slaanesh when they were popular with my Gits army. I just battered them.
They just didn't get any stuff, anything off.
I had more models. They made them inconsistent with -1 system. They got no depravity off me. They got battered. So it was,
All right. So that's the Allegiance abilities. Generally a buff. Generally pretty good buff. So let's go through the hosts. Now, the same 3 hosts as they used to have: Invaders, Pretenders, and Godseekers. They have changed a bit. Obviously, they mostly what these did, as well as giving you artifacts and everything, give you access to extra depravity generation. So that's changed a little bit now. So first we got Invaders, and Invaders lets you have 3 generals instead of 1. Only one of your generals can have a command trait, but all 3 are considered to be the general for purposes of using command abilities, which is semi-relevant, but a little bit watered down and meaningless a lot of the time, which is a little bit of a shame. And none of your generals can use their command trait or command ability while they were in 12 inches of any of your other generals, which is also a bit weird. And every time one of your generals is slain, you get a command point. Right, so you get 3 guys, basically 3 Keeper of Secrets probably, and when they die, you get an extra command point for the other ones to use, which is fine. And the way these get their extra depravity is at the end of your battle shock phase. If any of your generals are wholly within enemy territory, you get an extra 1, and if all 3 of them are in enemy territory, you get D3 instead of 1, which is the worst of the 3 depravity point generators.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Now, generally, the artifacts and command traits for Slaanesh were pretty decent, and we mostly used to put them on keepers to make them better. And they've generally been watered down a bit. There's quite a lot of very small nerfs spread throughout this section, which is a little bit unfortunate. Nothing major that massively changes the game or anything like that. But I'm just going to open my old book, which I've got side by side here, and just check something quickly that I've not noticed.
I'll take a couple of quick questions. So, yeah, thanks to everybody who's joining us as well in the show there. So the summoning points don't reset to 0, as I believe from what I'm reading there.
No, that's a corn specific buff where your summoning points go to 0, because it means you don't have to count as much, which makes it a lot easier for corn players to play Age of Sigmar. It just saves you doing maths. So yeah, Slaanesh don't have that.
Raj was just asking back. Raj, we're talking about stopping people piling in, and the effect that they can't fight if you're not within melee range, right? So that's how good that is.
Than the old Locust, essentially. So back to Invaders, yeah. So they have not got any particular super good command traits. A lot of these are focused around like killing heroes and things like that, as they always have been. Probably one of the best ones here. End of the combat phase, if any enemy units were destroyed, you gain a command point, which is very often just going to be +1 command point per turn, which is pretty decent. They've also got the same one they used to have, Territorial, which lets you reroll hit rolls for your general while they're wholly within your territory, which is quite a powerful buff. Maybe not always the way Slaanesh want to be playing, wholly being in your territory, and on some maps really with very small boxes hurts you quite a lot. So it's a pretty good buff, but not that fantastic in practice. And then they've got Delusions of Infallibility, which is +2 wounds to a general, and given that keepers heal a lot, that can be quite useful for keeping them around.
There's healing all over the show, isn't there? Still, there's so many options for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've also got Skin Taker, which lets them heal D3 wounds if they killed any models, which when you combine with the Sinistrous Hand is quite good. So some okay command traits there. Artifacts of Power, in my opinion, still not very good. They got a lot of stuff that targets heroes. They got the Rod and Miss rule still, which a lot of people used to love. I personally am not a fan of this at all. On a 1, at the start of your hero phase, you roll dice. On a 1, your opponent gets a command point. On a 2 to 5, you do. On a 6, you get D3. I'm not really a big fan. They do have the Icon of Infinite Excess, which they've always had. Start of the combat phase till the end of the turn, all Hedonites were in 12 inches get +1 to hit with melee weapons, which I've always thought pretty good. Surprised, never seen that much. But Invaders, I think, probably the weakest.
You need the command points, weren't you? You were just spamming attacks with keepers, weren't you? So it was
exactly.
Bit of a thing, that Rod and Miss
they've
rule.
Still got the Khaine of Slaanesh, which lets you sacrifice an artifact to get a permanent buff. So some of these once per battle things can be quite good with that. But the problem is being in range of it after you've used that icon. If you'll probably never be in range of the Khaine after you've used it. If you plan it right and you get to use that and then pop it to the Khaine, it could be really, really good. But yeah, that's probably the weakest host. Now, previously, I was always a big fan of God Seekers, which give you +1 to run and charge, or +1 to charge rolls in the old edition, particularly with wanting to summon units and then charge them in straight away. And Pretenders were like the second best in my opinion, but I think they're pretty level now. So Pretenders generals have 2 different command traits, and you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for all Pretenders units that I got 10 or more models while your general's on the battlefield. So really good if you're taking a bunch of Demonettes, big units of Seekers, big units of the new Slick Blade Seekers, that kind of stuff, because there's not a lot of access to rerolls in this book for the rest of the army necessarily. So this is where they got some slightly watered down stuff that I don't think was really necessary. So Strength of Godhood is once per combat phase, you can add 1 to the damage of a successful attack. So after the attack,
how did you rate their extra depravity?
Sorry, their generation. So their generation is 1 depravity point if your generals were in 3 inches of an enemy, and at the end of the battle shock phase, you get a D3 if your generals were in 3 of 2 or more enemy units. I mean, you're going to get the depravity off this every turn. You're going to get the depravity off this every turn, basically. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not amazing either. It's still better than the Invaders one. I think so. Strength of Godhood used to be after you've attacked, after you've hit, after you've wounded, you can do an extra D3 damage to the hit that's about to go through. That's been changed to 1. Probably not necessary. Not really sure why. That was a very common one. Seems to have been nerfed based on that. And then so they've also got Strongest Alone, which lets you reroll hits for this model while there's no other friendly models were in 6, which I think is really good on Keepers. You can easily engineer that all the time. And I think they are probably the 2 you're taking. The rest of it targets like heroes and monsters, and does things with Battle Shock. It's pretty poor. The other thing that used to go on like the super keepers, just to answer Gabe's question in chat, as well as Silver Slash. So this was another thing I wanted to talk about. This used to give you +2 attacks to one of your weapons. It now gives you +1. So that's a double nerf to the Pretender's super keeper. And let's be fair, that super keeper was better than a normal keeper, but it still wasn't exactly like, it wasn't that model's fault that the army was too powerful. So the double nerfs to that seem a bit much to me. It's still got the Scepter of Domination.
There's quite a lot of things that have hurt the super keeper.
Yeah, exactly. All those have vanished as well. Yeah, we've still got the Scepter of Domination, which is start of the hero phase. If you were in 12 enemy heroes, and this is the hero phase, so both of them on a 4+, your opponent loses a command point and you gain 1, which is just really good. Like, it's just really, really powerful. That swing, you think Catacross is bad, like just stopping you getting 1. This is stealing 1 on a 4. It's really cool. Maybe not always the kind of thing you want to do with keepers, like you want to make them murder things in combat, but if you're not using keepers and you use another type of heroes, this is more suited to like buff heroes and that kind of stuff, which we might start using in the future. That's pretty much what you're going to be picking from in Pretenders. So I still think that is a good choice, because even though we can't buff keepers as much as we used to, buffing keepers is still good, as we'll get to in a minute. But my pick of the hosts is still Godseekers. Still the best host in my opinion. So they get +1 to charge rolls.
I agree. I like this one.
Yeah, +1 to charge rolls.
I can't remember which one we picked last time, but
it was this one. But lots of people like Pretenders. +1 to charge rolls, and at the end of your charge phase, you get D3 if your general charged. Everyone else had to do something dodgy to get their D3. You just have to charge your general, and if you're not doing that, you're probably losing the game anyway most of the time. You also get +1 extra depravity if any other units charge. So this is D3 +1.
Yeah.
10, 1 probably. And then if you're free up to charge, which we'll talk about in a sec, again, 10, 2. So that's really good. This is also, the command traits have largely been left untouched as well. So this has got my favorite command trait that I used to use. You'll remember me talking about this in the past, is Hunter Supreme. If you general charge, you get to reroll hits and wounds of 1, which is really good on the keeper to make them more consistent. The other one that they've got is Speed Chaser, which lets you general retreat and charge, which obviously helps with depravity generation if you want to do that, but is just generally very powerful anyway. The third one they've got that I have seen people take time to time and is kind of tempting is Into the Fray. First hit roll you make in the battle is automatically a 6, which automatically means you hit twice. It's that Alf Strike style thing. And I don't think that used to be quite a good thing to do, because you'd wipe enough of someone's stuff out that they'd never get back on top of you in your depravity race. Probably can't do that as much anymore. But auto 2 hits instead of having to roll a dice is actually quite a big buff on a 5 damage attack. Artifacts, so Cameo the Dark Prince, this was super popular. This used to be...
You don't like Speed Chaser there? The general can retreat and charge in the same turn.
I said that before I went into
the
fray. Yeah, you must have been reading chat. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I always liked that, but I never actually used it, though, even though it's really good. I always used Hunter Supreme, because I always thought the consistency was more important, but it is very good. Cameo the Dark Prince, this was a super popular artifact. It's once a game use. You gain a command point and all your models become immune to Battle Shock. Well, it's been nerfed. It's lost the Battle Shock bit. Don't know why it needed that nerf. Particularly, but that bit's gone. So just gives you 1 command point once a game. This is away to the Fane. Yeah, you just do it turn 1 and throw it away to the Fane. So it's still a fine artifact to take. I'm not sure it was fair to nerf it for everyone else who might have took it, though, like the mortal heroes maybe who could have used the Battle Shock and immunity and that. But anyway, is what it is.
It's like Hawkeye's saying here again, isn't it? It's how much CP you're going to need. You know,
so and that's the thing.
You've just got to gauge all that, haven't you? So
yeah. I mean, more CP is always good, though. Let's face it, especially in an army that's got a lot of run and charge and that kind of stuff for them auto 6s.
We've got all those new command abilities now as well for reroll 1s and things, which you always would like to use if you had CP. So
you can definitely use in this book as much CP as you can generate, the same way it always has been. There's a lot of ways to use it. Girdle of the Realm Racer is you lose a wound, but you can fly. Still very good. Flying Keepers is a very powerful thing. Losing a wound's the way it was in the old book as well. Not a nerf. Good artifact. The other one is the Enraptured Circlet. Enemy units within 3 can't retreat. As a little bonus, start of the hero phase on a 3+, they take a mortal. That could definitely not be there. I would not care if they removed that line. I'd rather the Cameo add its last line in. But yeah, so you can have a keeper that no one can retreat from, and he can retreat and charge every turn. Is a pretty funky thing to do. The only problem, obviously, is they're quite squishy. You know, if that was on a tanky model, you'd be able to do a lot of control-y things with that, and they're a little bit squishy for that. But overall, this is, for most cases, I would say this is the standout best host. I doubt you will see the best competitive armies run anything but that, for me.
Yeah, it feels like for me, I think the charge one is always good, but like before, with the amount of summoning that you were doing, and someone made the point in chat earlier, you know, you only summon 1 unit now. You remember what it was like? There's so many units getting summoned. You were summoning 2, 3 units. You were stringing out along the board. You were making loads of 9-inch charges, which were turning into an 8. You know, that focus of it's gone away a little bit, but you've still got the way to give the keepers fly. Amazing. Like they're huge base models and super fast. You need it. And the depravity generation's really good on it. So certainly the one that stood out for me when I read through.
Yeah, super solid. And you know, you might, the thing is with those charges, the argument I always made about making those 8-inch charges from summons instead of 9, a lot of the time they're clutch charges. They're game winning rolls. It's if I roll an 8, I roll a 9, I win the game, and you can make it an 8. If I summon my 30 demonettes to take that objective or whatever. And more than once, you know, JP used to play this army, and he used to play Invaders or Pretenders, and I always argued with him about Godseekers.
You always mock, don't you, every time the 8 gets rolled?
I always like to bring this up. He played Godseekers once, and he won a game because he rolled an 8 in his last turn at Warhammer World. You know, those clutch things are so important. Right, let's move on to spells. So the spells are pretty much the same. Some minor buffs. I'm not going to go through all the spells. They're actually not that interesting, Slaanesh spells, to be honest. They've still got Hysterical Frenzy, which is a really good Newcom big unit. 18-inch range, casts on a 7. Bit unreliable, but the keepers just do this as a side effect anyway. For every 6, 1 dice per model in the unit, D3 mortals. Really good. Averages 10 mortals against a 30 model unit, so that's very powerful still. Born of Damnation.
Now, what this, as well, gone.
Yeah, well, depravity as well. Yeah, Born of Damnation. What this used to do was heal 1 wound, and if you rolled a 10, it would heal D3. Now it just heals D3, which is really good because keepers love healing. Like, it's the only way they have of staying alive. Forbidden Sorceries of Slaanesh. This is the Greater Demon one now. They have lost one of their old crappy spells that I can't even remember the name of because no one ever taken it, and they've got a new one called Paths of the Dark Prince. Casts on a 7, makes you fly. Brilliant.
I thought that was new. Yeah, they brought another way in to fly, you know, and we talked about the loss of Thermal Rider. We just talked about that artifact, was it, a minute ago?
Yeah.
So it's another way to get access to it.
Very good, and certainly not something, because it casts on a 7, right? So you can't really rely on it. You can't put your model behind a rock and expect it to work. But you know, it's a good thing to have access to, particularly when you got a lot of utility spells anyway, because you got so many spell casts on the board. And then lastly, we've got the Law of Pain and Pleasure, which is the same. I'm pretty sure just exactly the same as it was, except no one ever took it before because there was no models to put it on.
Was that Slothful Stupor here before? Yeah,
it was always there. Yeah, but it's super powerful. It's so good. Enemy hero when in 12 can't use command abilities or run or charge. It's just like stupidly good.
I don't remember that getting done to me, and it's so good.
Well, it casts on a 7, so what I always found with that spell, you always had it on one keeper, and he normally died first if people knew to do it, like to get him off the board, and or you just failed to cast it because 7s suck. Most armies with a lot of spells that cast on a 7 were like, oh, this law sucks, but because Slaanesh get like keepers stand on their own merits without the spells a lot of the time, and these are just like free throw-ins, so it's not that annoying when you don't cast the spells. Law of Pain and Pleasure, must point out though, it is actually a pretty decent law. They got a nuke, only a 12-inch range, but a unit takes 1 mortal for every 5 models in the unit, so it's auto 6 mortals on a 30-wound unit is quite good. And then they've got one called Dark Delusions, which casts on a 4 with an 18-inch range. The flip side is you've then got to beat their bravery on 2d6, so cast easy, extra roll. But you get +1 to hit that unit, which is quite good because it can buff shooting.
Yeah, it's decent.
So that's a useful thing. The Khaine of Slaanesh. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Khaine of Slaanesh still does what it used to do. You sack artifacts to it to get permanent hit rerolls, which is great.
I think I just seen James Tinsdale mention in the chat. I think you can summon from this now, and you couldn't before.
You can summon from what?
The Khaine, is that right?
Oh, you can use the Khaine as a point of summoning.
Yeah.
Instead of the hero. Yeah, I'd not spotted that. Okay, well that's cool. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So what it used to do was, I completely misread that. What it used to do is refund depravity when you summon next to it. What it does now is like it counts as a hero now for summoning, basically, so you can summon around it. Okay,
it's nice because if you get all your heroes wiped out, you can still lean back into your summoning.
I mean that's actually a pretty big deal.
Unless a giant comes and smashes it up on you.
Well, yeah, that's good though. That's a cool interaction.
Yeah, like, I love that stuff with the giants. Yeah,
those giants. Yeah. One of the classic ways of dealing with Slaanesh's summoning was just killing all the heroes. And, you know, a lot of the time Slaanesh had to summon a little hero with their first 6 depravity and hide it behind a rock or something. And now you don't have to do that. So that's actually really good. Gives you a reason to position the Khaine further out onto the board as well, and maybe use the power, not just turn 1, then forget it exists for the rest of the game. So that's actually a nice little buff.
Nice.
We'll look at the battalions at the end, because they're only relevant in context.
Okay.
Right. So, like a lot of AOS books, this is a book of 2 halves. Basically, you've got a bunch of demons, and then you've got a bunch of mortals. They don't necessarily buff each other, but they actually do cross over quite a lot more than a lot of books. Keeper of Secrets is unchanged, 340 points. Other than its command ability, which has got a little nerf, which again I don't think is really needed. It can't target itself for its command ability anymore. So it can't make itself fight twice, which is in some ways not that big a deal.
I thought that was a thing before, or whatever, but it can't do it anyway.
They always could, in some ways, is not that big a deal because you're always going to have more than one anyway. A lot of the time, if you're taking them, but you know, it does force you down that path of multiple keepers, which I think we all think is a great thing anyway, because the keeper model is incredible. But if
they're priced well enough points wise that it's not just going to consume your whole army as well. You know, two of them at 680, you can still take lots of stuff, be that for making your army win, or be it just that, you want to use some of the other models, which is what I've been worried about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, that's a little bit of a nerf, unfortunately. But, the model is still good. I think a thing I always used to point out a lot is that Keeper's damage output isn't actually that good, right? They've only got like 18 damage on the War Scroll. They're only 3s and 3s. Almost half of that damage is only one rend. They don't actually hit that hard. They rely on 6s to double their attacks and 6s to turn the things into mortals to hit hard. But the total damage output isn't actually that high unless they go twice. And for 340 points, it's only got a 4+ save. It's only got 14 wounds. Keepers just aren't incredible. They were incredible because of the summoning. They're just decent.
Two just automatically turned into one more, didn't they? Before they were they were
sometimes one, depending on how well you did. You're still taking the same options on them, so you're still taking either the Shining Aegis for the 6+ save, or the Sinistrous Hand for the extra D3 heals. You're still taking one of those things. The Living Whip's never getting a look in. Interestingly, the Living Whip in 40k is really good. It's like a really big short range gun, and the Living Whip in this is like just super irrelevant. So you're still taking either of those things, probably on personal preference. I think the shield looks better. I think when I do my next Keeper, I'm going to give it a shield because it just looks so cool. And they're pretty much identical numbers wise. Silesk has had some changes. He used to have this rule where he went once with one weapon, then he went once with the other weapon at the end of the combat phase and got to re-roll his hits. That's just gone now. It created so many rules problems for FAQs, and it is actually quite complicated to read. So now he just attacks with all of his weapons, but he doesn't get the re-rolls anymore. He's got a new rule. Now, this is a rewrite of his War Scroll. I don't know why this doesn't happen more often. It'd be good. Not that he's done very well out of it. His Deadly Symbiosis ability is you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Hedonite units within 18 inches of him if the number of mortal Hedonites and demon Hedonite units within 18 of them is the same. How are you ever going to engineer it if you've got the identical number? And imagine playing against another Slaanesh player. This is just off all game. There's no way it's ever going to happen. This is a silly ability. I'm just going to.
Why am I being and it's not great, that one, is it? It's
terrible. But he has got an interesting ability now. So that he used to do a bit, then do the rest at the end of the phase. So he was always a sort of one to go last sort of thing. He's now got an ability called the Vengeful Allegiance, which is in the combat phase. If anyone rolls a 1 to hit him, he gets +1 to hit and wound until the end of the phase, which is interesting. So what you want to do with him is get him next to the corner of a unit, stop them piling in, let them roll a few dice at him, which doesn't kill him, but one of them rolls a 1, and then attack with a bunch of weapons. That's basically what you do with him.
It's an interesting rule for a sequencing, and I think that's quite cool. So
he is, yeah. He's quite interesting. I think at 200 points, 200 points for a 9 wound model with an 8-inch move. He has got a really good spell, which turns off command abilities on heroes. He's got a really good, in some situations, command ability, which is just turn off battle shock within 18 inches as well, which is always a nice thing to have access to. So I think he's still playable. He's certainly not super powerful, but if you've got a lot of big units on the board, you get value out that command ability. He hits plenty hard enough, 16 points of damage consistently. He's got locus.
200 points.
So yeah, it's a lot. He's by no means great, but he's playable.
I haven't done my homework. What the hell do these White Dwarf rules happen now? Are they gone? I don't. Is it? You know what I mean, right? I've lost the sound on you, Ian. I don't know if that's you.
Sorry, that was actually me muting my mic to cough and then forgetting to unmute it.
So
those rules affect depravity generation, right?
Yeah.
And depravity generation doesn't work the same way as it used to. So if those white dwarf rules are still relevant, the summoning's going to be mad now. So I'm making an assumption that those white dwarf rules aren't going to be relevant, but I don't know.
I haven't got them to hand. I can't remember if it was like it was heroes wholly within 12 generated multiple depravity, and that doesn't happen anymore, right? So I just don't see how they work anymore.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I mean. I'm just assuming. We don't know. It's gonna have to be FAQ'd or something. So I just can't really.
Maybe just put them rules away now. But yeah.
But if that is relevant,
Ian,
you're not
Ian. Chaos problems. Like when I review a chaos book, I just look at it and think, right, I've got to pick up another. Well, what about the other 3 books now that I haven't read yet?
Well, handily, they've taken a bunch of stuff away in this book, so you can't do that anymore, which is really nice as well. So makes it easier to understand for all those dumb chaos players. Shalaxi Hellbane, basically the same as she used to be as well. No real changes to what she does. So she's still an option over a normal keeper. The main thing is she's 30 points less than a normal keeper, though. And the main drawback to Shalaxi used to be she didn't have the command ability, but the command abilities can't be used on yourself now, and it's a bit nerfed anyway. So her drawback is a bit less.
Yeah.
And she's 30 points cheaper, so she's also definitely
got some great abilities as well. Yeah, the challenge ability is strong. I love it.
Yeah, she's always been good. And now she's got some more good stuff. And I think with you've got like Techless around, and they seem to be on a thing of sort of making more big models like the one we've got for this book as well. Her ability to murder heroes goes up in value the more of those that get played. So she's still good for the same reasons the other keepers are. I'm going to go quite fast through some of these demon bits because not a lot has changed from the old days, but the epitome has also had a bit of a rewrite, and it's largely been gutted, unfortunately. Its horrible fascination ability isn't a strike's last ability anymore. It's just on a 4+ for each unit within 3 of it. It can't target the epitome, which would be good if the epitome did lots of stuff you cared about, but it's really not. It's also lost its ability to reroll unbinds and dispels for some reason, and it's kept its spell. So it's still a fast model with okay damage in combat. It casts 2 spells, and it rerolls its casting rolls. So that's okay, but basically 200 points for a slightly tougher wizard
210,
is just not amazing. There might be some use out of it because its spell is lets you reroll ones to hit against D3 enemy units, and it's got a 24-inch range. So you can get that off turn 1 if you want to shoot people with a load of archers. So it might still have some play.
That is strong, and split fire for depravity generation.
Yeah, exactly.
It
might still have some play, but for 200 points and with the cost of the army in general, I'm not sure. The Infernal and Rapturous is, the Infernal and Rapturous didn't really get played. Like, she had some play as a meta choice in a magic heavy meta, but she's gone up to 150 points.
Mike Wilson summoned so many of them against me once as well.
They were good for that.
Put about 5 on the table and just started drilling me with these shots. I was like,
yeah. They were good for like doing that sort of thing with, when you had infinite depravity all the time. And sometimes you just, you're going to summon a hero to hide anyway. It might as well have an aura that debuffs wizards. But you're not going to do that anymore. And she's 150 points now. So that model is dead pretty much.
Yeah.
The Mask, the Vice Leader, and all of the Heralds on Chariots, right? Big section of the book. All do the same. Yeah, all do the same as what they used to do. The Chariot points are just like nuts. Like the Exalted Bladebringer Chariot is 250 points.
Man.
The Health Layer is 200, and the ones without the heroes on them are still like the basic Exalted Chariot, 190 points. Like, you're just not paying for any of these units ever. Which in some ways is a good thing because absolutely no one ever wants to assemble and paint these because they're horrible. I've got 2 of these fully painted, which is not a thing I get to say a lot about any given model, but I've got 2 of these fully painted. I still rate the Bladebringer on the Exalted model
still. It's just
it's a real shame because the kit does a lot. There's 6 Warscrolls in the book using this kit. 6 Warscrolls. And they're all basically unplayable points-wise, but they are summonable. They are definitely a thing you could consider summoning sometimes.
Big on the charge, good on the charge. So yeah.
So the Bladebringer on the Exalted Chariot is a 10 wound model with a 4-up save, and it moves 10. The slight disadvantage or drawback to it, very fat base, which is a bit annoying. Really when it charges, you roll a dice on a 2 to 4. This is every unit as well, and you can easily get 2 when it charges. I used to all the time. On a 2 to 4, D3 Mortals. On a 5 plus D6. You normally get that amount of wounds is normally on like giant dinosaurs and things. That's quite a lot. And then again at the start of the combat phase on a 2-up, D3 more Mortals. And for every 2 that you get, so if you do multiple units multiple times, you get bonuses to all your attacks. And this has always had a deceptively strong attack profile. This has got 23 attacks on its profile. On
so
3s and 4s. Yeah, 2/3 of them with a rend as well. That's more damage than a Keeper's got on its profile. It's less consistent, it's less average, obviously. But a lot of damage, and it goes up. And when you throw in the Mortals and the fact that it's also brings its Locust with it, and the fact that it's also a spellcaster as well, it's a good model. It's just not a 250 point model. But it's definitely one I would summon if I had 9 depravity. If I had 9 depravity and I needed to spend it now, that's what I'd be buying, is one of them, because it is very, very strong. As Owen's just said in chat, it loves charging KO boats. Yeah, like anything that does everything within X, very good at charging KO. So whilst I don't think you're going to see these taken in armies competitively, I do think you will see them on the table as summons. If people can be bothered to paint them only to use as a summon. Luckily, I've got to. Demonettes, 110 points, 10 models with a 6-inch move and a 5-up save. Very weak defensively. But they can run and charge, and they reroll the charge rolls thanks to the Banner Bearer, and they get models back on a 1 on Battle Shock, and they make you reroll your 1s on Battle Shock. And they've got 2 attacks, 4s and 4s, Ren 1. You can make them go twice with a Keeper of Secrets. You can put them in Epicurean Revelers, which makes them do Mortals when they roll 6s to wound. And if the unit's big enough, they get 3 hits on every 6. So Demonette's still a solid troop unit.
Yeah. Going to be summoned a lot.
They're going to be summoned. Yeah, 30 of them for 12 depravity is pretty good. Are solid troop units that don't have any form of defense against range attacks good in Age of Sigmar in 2021? Maybe not really.
There was this army's weakness before, and now they don't get the they're not replacing the models that are killed anymore as well as easily. So and that's the thing, and one of the weaknesses of this army was always you had to take a bunch of battle line in the army that you didn't want, and these were never good. And especially when you take them in 10s, you want them even less. They're doing nothing for your army really. So. A fine war scroll if the game wasn't the way it was, but right now a little bit on the weak side, and they could have probably stood to not be 110 points. They probably could have been 90. Given we update points once every 6 months, they probably could have been 90 given how bad they are right now. And they got competition in the battle line.
Well, they have now. They have now. So Fiends were a brand new kit. They are the same. I've actually got a box of these right next to me because I love the models so much.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Great rules as well.
Yeah, and in theory, great rules, but they were heavily nerfed, weren't they? They got like mega debuffed in points and etc. Their 4 wounds were a 5-up save, no extra defensive abilities, and 180 points, which is
3 models.
Yeah,
150 to 200 points. Just the problem with an endless list of Age of Sigmar units. So
a classic type of unit that historically they've always failed to make good. Normally because they make them about 50 points too expensive. Like if these were
one model, 2 models, only 3 models.
If these were 120 points, would you spam them? You wouldn't. Like 12 wounds or a 5-up save. Yeah, they're fast. Yet they've got a good defensive ability in melee, but they lose it as soon as they go under 4 models. So the only man hit them, and their attacks are crap. 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 1 per model. You've only got 3 models. They do, they've got a thing that's kind of cool when it hits monsters and does d6 wounds per attack, but mostly another 1 damage attack. So they do less damage than a battle line unit, Right now, they've got like half the efficiency of a battle line unit in terms of wounds per point. -1 to cast rolls for enemy wizards within 12. Like, do we rate that ability enough to make these 180 and the Enrapturers 150? Like, I don't know. So these are, I mean, they're basically unplayable, my opinion, which is a real shame because the model's amazing. They are very good in 40k though, so that makes me happy.
Okay.
As a Slaanesh player. Seekers, I'm going to skip over Seekers and the two Hellstrider Warscrolls because they are all horrendously expensive for what they do. The Hellstriders and Hellscourge guys have both got some slightly new rules that don't really change how good or bad they are because they're just too expensive again. 140-point cavalry.
2 wounds. Let's remember that though when we move on.
Well, actually, you know what? Let's say the Hellstriders or Hellscourges are a little bit more interesting, right? Because they got 2 wounds and a 4-up save, which is a bit tougher than your average Slaanesh thing. They are battle line as well, right? They're 150 points, which is too expensive for what they do, but you're always looking for what you're going to fill your battle line with in Slaanesh. And a unit that moves 14 has 10 wounds and a 4-up save, and if it charges you, you get -1 to hit it. Might be better than their other options at certain points. So these are worth considering as the best of a bad bunch for battle lines sometimes, which is something to be aware of. They are web store only and very expensive as well, though, so you could quite easily skip those based on that too. Right now we're on to the Mortal section of the book, so this is all new.
Woo! This is what we're here for.
Is everyone excited for all this? Right. Glutos or Scullion, terribly named. This is the only model in the range I don't like.
Really?
In the range, like it's no doubt, it's an incredibly sculpted model, and it will look fantastic on the table and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like bloated fat things. That's not what I'm here for in Slaanesh, right? I'm here for lithe, weird, androgynous demon humans with claws coming out of their arms. And Sigvald. That's what I'm here for in Slaanesh, not big fatties. So not my favorite model, but an amazing model. Like, amazing amount of detail. Like, look at the amount of stuff. It's just it's an incredibly put together model.
I think it's fantastic. There's just, I know a lot of people. It's quite interesting. You say that you're not into the gluttonous, side of Slaanesh that they've explored here, which they haven't really explored before, have they? So it's I think it's quite cool. I think it's a lovely model. So
yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible model. Just not for me necessarily, but his rules are, so that's good. He only moves 8 inches. Let's start with that, and his base is massive, right? That's a problem. Yeah. Let's start with that. He's got 18 wounds and a 3-up save. And he's 400 points. So wounds efficiency, okay. As good as it really gets for monsters at that level. So from that point of view, baseline, he's quite a survival model. That's a good thing. So what he does is first ability, the Grand Gourmand, right? He spends a bunch of his time eating. As the battle goes on, he gets more and more abilities from the eating. Unfortunately, the abilities are crap. So round one is Aperitif, +1 bravery for mortal Hedonite units within 6 inches of the model. Crap effect, crap range. He has got a massive base, but yeah, whatever, irrelevant. Round 2, he gets the ability to run and charge. That's good, right? We want that. That means
you just established the problems for him.
Yeah, he should be getting into combat on turn 2. We're an 8-inch move, so fine. And he keeps these. They're not just for the round; they stay cumulative for the whole battle. Round 3, don't take battle shock test for friendly mortal Slaanesh wholly within 12. So there again, the round 1 ability becomes irrelevant by round 3 because it's overwritten. Round 4, now this is where it sort of gets cool, although a lot of the time the game is over by this point. So this is a little bit, you put in context of that. Yeah. At the end of your hero phase, he's a spellcaster, by the way. He casts 2 spells a turn. So he's got one of the spells out of the lore. Probably the +1 to hit one, I think. He can change his spell at the end of your hero phase from turn 4 onwards. So once, because there's only one more turn in the game after that. And he can attempt to cast an extra spell in your hero phase. Now, he's a double caster. He's got one from his lore, and he's got one on his war scroll. So that extra spell is Arcane Bolt or Mystic Shield. So this sounded good until you actually look at
or end the spell, and
it's pretty, or an endless spell maybe, but like, 10-4, like, you know what I mean? That's his big payoff for this ability. Turn 5, he can reroll caster spells and unbinds. Like, this ability's flavor. This entire thing is just some flavor. It's not really very impactful.
I'll tell you, this is where I got a little bit disappointed as well. So there's not, all those allegiance abilities, we go back to all that. There wasn't much of a focus on mortals. They were very general. They were very the same as what was there before, which is maybe what I said at the opening, managing our expectations of these books a bit, wasn't it? That the big new model range, I sort of thought there might be more focus on them at that early part. The
like
book
an extra allegiance ability for them.
Yeah, splits a bit more. And then when I seen this guy's ability that you just read through, and I seen things are going to happen each battle round, I really thought that was going to fill that gap.
Yeah,
he'd be like, if you play mortals, you take this guy, and that's it. But it wasn't there, so I was disappointed at that point. I thought,
But his next ability is, and this is what we're here for. Fog of Temptation, 12-inch range, -1 to hit for enemy units.
Yeah, big base
and a massive base, like very, very, very
within
good.
12, not wholly within, nothing. Just
really good. That's what we're here for. And he's tough to kill. What's that?
His spell is pretty bloody good as well. But
and then the next thing he does is his stave, +1 to cast a spell and unbind. Good solid ability. Always like to see that on casters. Then he's got companions in the same way as Catacross has. So he started some companions and he loses them as he takes damage. I'm guessing this is a new thing we're going to see more because it's like keyworded companion abilities. It's probably a new thing we're going to see a lot of. So the first guy, I'm going to do them in the order in which he loses them. The first one is a priestess. You roll a dice in your hero phase. On a 2-up, you get a 5+ wound and mortal wound ward save for him. So that makes him quite tough. 18 wounds, 3-up save, 5+ mortal save, some heals in the army as well to keep him alive. That's pretty good, but you lose her when you've taken 5 wounds. Yeah. So any serious attack, a big attack from something big, you're going to have these for that one round of attacks, and then you're going to lose it, probably.
Yeah,
it only goes on
like weird. When you look at a model like this and you look at the stuff, when you look at Catacross and you look at what dropped off, there was incentives to do it. They pay off quick when you target this guy, don't you? Yeah. I thought with that first one, with the feel no pain going straight away, I was like, all right, if you want this guy dead, it's gone,
His move drops as well very quickly. When you do them 5 wounds, his move drops to 6 as well, and suddenly it's a bit meh. So, and you also have to roll a 2+ to get that to go off. Like, did that really need to be there? I'm not sure. Probably could have had the save and save some lines. But anyway, so that's the first one. The second one is Painbringer Kiar's, is Lashmaster Vishk. We lose him after 9 wounds. He lets you reroll charges. So he's got bad move. He's got enough move to be in combat on turn 2. Probably turn 1 if the opponent comes into the midfield. If there's any terrain in the way, though, none of these abilities are really going to help him get around it. That's his big problem. Massive base, smallish move, no fly.
Because the fly was Greater Demon spell, wasn't it?
Greater Demon spell, yeah.
This guy's not even a demon as well. I thought he might be. He's got a big claw.
Yeah, so he hasn't even got Locus, like that's not there. The last thing he loses is one of his attacks, like on a 6 to wound, does mortals instead of its normal damage, which is neither here nor there. Like, we don't really care about this one at that point. So let's have a look at his attack stats. I've left these to last because they're not the main reason why we're taking them.
When you lose Painbringer, though, you lose quite a lot of attacks. So
you don't lose. You only lose the mortal. You don't lose the attacks.
No. It says the companions that currently accompany them. You can use the opponent's abilities.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, so the Painbringer has got
it says, and only those companions can attack as well, Ian. So you lose the companion attacks as he takes wounds as well. See what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of weird, but it doesn't actually say that in the rules anywhere. So it doesn't.
You can only use the companion's abilities for companions currently accompanying Glutos, and only those companions can attack. So,
yes. However, there are no rules on the Warscroll for which one of those companions has which attack. The attacks are just on the Warscroll, so you can see what the intent is.
it says who's got them at the start in the companions, but it says like Lashmas Aviscu attacks with the flaying scourge.
Oh yeah, I missed that. All right, I should have read that. Does anyone ever read that first paragraph on most Warscrolls? Because I always skip it.
This is what I do, right? I look at how many melee weapons they got, right? And then I'm like, okay, this guy's got like 12. How many of these does he actually get to use? So that's why I read it. You know, it's like Keeper of Secrets. It's got 4 and you only get 2 of them or whatever. So
while we're on this topic, actually, there is another unit later in the book that I did this with as well. So this is probably a thing I should stop doing, is skipping the first paragraph and going straight to the decent rules. So anyway, so that one guy's got a Wailing Great Blade, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage. Not amazing. But you know, you lose them quite late. We got some irrelevant, crappy attacks off the other 2 guys. Then the crushing claws off the big monstrous claw crab things on the front. 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 3 damage, and that degrades 5, 4, 3s. He takes wounds. So
only 1 rend though.
Yeah, only 1 rend. So his attacks are pretty mediocre, and for 400 points, you probably really need to get him into combat to be getting his value. And he's a bit hard to get into combat. He's not. Because of his base, his slow speed, issues with terrain, mediocre melee attacks, he's not something you're going to slam into combat. Even if you want to, you're not going to slam him into combat. And he does degrade quite badly. Like after he's taken 5 wounds, he loses his save, he loses 2 inches of movement, and he loses a crushing claw attack. Then when he takes another 4 wounds, he loses his reroll charges, which might not be that important at that point, but then he goes down to 5-inch move and 4 crushing claw attack, so he degrades quite badly. So overall, right now for 400 points, we're
definitely falling into the buff model category, isn't he?
Yeah,
and we're about. Sorry,
I was say a buff model that you don't really want to fight in combat if you can help it.
Yeah,
but he's a lot easier to avoid than Catacross because Catacross is a lot smaller. And his command ability, right? This is interesting.
The buff things carry on now, don't they? So
yeah, Gorge on Excess. Once a turn in your hero phase, you pick a friendly Hedonite model, Holy Within 12. Until the next hero phase, so potentially 2 turns, if an enemy unit is destroyed by an attack made by that Hedonite unit, and there are wounds that remain to be allocated, you heal that number of wounds on your unit. So the obvious use of this, Keeper of Secrets, about to kill a unit, overkill, go back up to full wounds.
Yeah.
A little bit poorly worded in some ways because it says an attack, right? So is the intention of this attack in the context of your unit does an attack? So it's all the wounds left to be allocated from all of the attacks you've rolled, because they all go into a pool, right, is the way this works. All your damage goes into a pool. Whatever's left over, he's going to heal the wounds. Or is the intent from that one individual attack?
I suppose. Yeah.
So it could be either of those. I think the intent is that it's like whatever's left over from the round of the attack. So the weapon. So your keeper, you do your claws with the 10 damage on, finishes a unit off. You've got 4 or 5 left. You get the wounds back. Is probably the intent, but it's difficult.
They all at the same time, don't they? So it's probably everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that needs an FAQ, but this deck either way, heals are really good in this army. Right, so and you know for him even particularly because you can give him all his if he does an attack and you know you get him in there to finish a unit off, he can heal a bunch of his wounds back and maybe get his save back and continue being a mobile 12-inch bubble. And then he's a double caster, 2 unbinds, etc. His spell is 18-inch range, casts on a 7, enemy unit, half move, half run, half charge rolls, which is always a good spell in theory, not always that good in practice. But it can be quite powerful. It's very situational, though, isn't it? Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes the enemy army doesn't care. There's a lot of shooting around now, and he's getting another spell from the Mortal Law, which is not incredible either. So, although he's got 2 spells, he's a decent caster. He hasn't really got access to the spells to make use of it. Which
I rate his spell. I rate the mirror and the other wheels thing. I like that spell. You know, it's like, are you going to take Be'lakor?
He's taken endless spells
up with Be'lakor as well.
To get use out of his spell abilities, you're taking at least the mirror, probably, because it's really the good one. Interestingly enough, while we're on that topic, the Wheels of Excruciation doesn't affect Slaanesh units anymore, which was one of its problems, and also you know one of the ways used to farm depravity. But it's very close range, and it always used to hit you. It'd always come back at you. Doesn't affect Slaanesh units anymore. So that's a thing you can use. I think overall this model, I went to Avalanor from Lumineth to compare this model because he's also got a 12-inch -1 to hit bubble, and he's also a monster. Avalanor's 60 points less has got like 36 points of damage on his war scroll. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's the obvious comparison. 60 points less, he does 30 points of damage on his war scroll, and he's got a bunch of other relevant abilities as well. This guy's got like a bunch of like mediocre abilities, but he is a caster. He's a lot tougher, and he's 60 points more. So he's not as good as Avalanor, but in context, he's quite good. I guess the question is, do you want a 400-point -1 to hit bubble that does a lot of other like utility-ish things? And I definitely think the answer will very often be yes, depending on what kind of army you build.
Close, you know, he's
yeah.
Keepers do a lot, you know. And
you're certainly not slamming this into armies, and you're not going to see him on the table as often as you're going to see 3 keepers or whatever.
Spell, I really like the spell though, and you know, 18-inch range, nice big range, easy.
I really like it. Yeah, I really like it as well. But again, you know, I've played armies with these spells in lots of times for a few years, and there's just so much of the time you're like, I wish the spell was anything else right now, because you're engaged or you're out of range of the things that you want to. Things have to be quite far away for movement debuffs to make a difference, and it's only got an 18-inch range. I think these would often be really good if they were 24, so you could really stop sort of moving. Half charge is a thing, because you suddenly have to roll 6s on stuff.
No, he's not. Is he a monster? He's not a behemoth either.
Yeah, he's not a behemoth either. Yeah. So he's all right. He's certainly something you may consider for your armies. Let's move on to Sigvald, everyone's favorite crazy Slaanesh guy. Fantastic model, great reimagining of a classic character.
Absolutely.
He moves 6. He's got 6 wounds and a 3-up save, and he's got a 4-up ward save as well. So he's got some good stuff. He always strikes first in combat, which is good. And wounds he inflicts with his attacks can't be negated either, which is really, really good, because there's, you know, as an assassin, there's certain things you could just absolute murder with that ability. He's got 5 attacks, 2s and 3s, 2 rend, D3 damage as well, which is good. When he charges, his attacks change to be equal to the value of his charge roll if that's higher than 5. So if you get a 7, 8, something like that, he's got a lot of attacks. So he hits quite hard, and he's got good defensive stats and 6 wounds. He also adds 3 to his charge rolls. His attacks are the unmodified roll, unfortunately, but he adds 3 to his charge rolls. So he's getting into combat turn 2, probably. Problem is he's 250 points.
I'm not that reliable.
And not that reliable, not that hard to kill. You know, only 6 wounds. You can be spiked down. This guy, for me, going back to the Lumineth comparison, is Eltharion all over again. They've given him good stats. They've made him, his attacks are decent. He's got good special rules, all that kind of stuff. And then they've just overpointed him by like 80.
Yeah.
Or something. You know, single quite good melee beater on foot is not a thing that is good in Age of Sigmar. And regardless of what the stats on the model are, you have to make it cheap enough for that kind of model to be worth taking. Yeah, if he was 150 points, would you even fit him into a competitive army? Like, you'd maybe consider it, but would he be going in every time? No. So how is he going in at 250 ever? I just don't get that. This slot against something historically they've never gotten right. He does only strike first when he's charging, in reply to the question in chat. Does only strike first when he's charging.
I think it's the same when Gotrek come out. I was saying about it. It's obviously the same with Eltharion, what you said. That I just want them to be like 120 points on the board, boss models, loads of story behind them. They can have like a buff or some sort of synergy, and they've got a stat line that is, 4 attack, 3s, round 1, round 2, 2 damage. What?
Yeah.
I'd like them to be the heroes that are filling the armies out, but the awesome models, I guess. But maybe they're just not for us. So
I like this guy more than Eltharion. Eltharion's just a combat He's just got a thing in combat. This guy always goes first and has quite good damage potential and quite good spike potential, and could easily kill a bunch of models in a 30-man unit, kill a hero, ignore the ward saves. This is a good war scroll. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff, and if you do want to get him off the table, he's effectively a 12 wound model with that. I always look at ward saves just as a wound multiplier. He's a 12 wound model with a 3-up save. 200 points if he was a 12 wound model with a 3-up save would be a reasonable amount of points, but then you'd be worrying about his maneuverability and stuff. So he just needs to be cheaper, but he's super interesting for me. Like, the threat of him spiking a charge roll as well is quite a big thing.
He's a murderer. He's just a lot of points.
Yeah, he could have had.
Fight twice for them's good.
Yeah.
So
he could have come down in points. Imagine if you roll a 12 in your charge and make him fight twice. That'd be cool.
Pretty good.
He could have come down in points and gained some kind of buff abilities. He could have been 200 with a buff ability as well. He could have been a thing. Anyway, missed opportunity there, I think. Lord of Pain next. Great model. Vince Venturella's painted version of this model is one of my favorite painted models I've ever seen.
I've not seen it.
It's so good. I love his color scheme for a Slaanesh. 5 wounds with a 4-up save, 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. Decent stat line for being a normal melee guy on foot. He's got a 5-up ward save, and if he saves with that in melee, you take a mortal. So, nice little thing. Mm-hmm. Main reason we're here is for his command ability. Friendly mortal Hedonite unit within 12. Reroll attacks. Works on ranged as well. 150 points, though. 150. Like, these type of models are great.
His command ability is boss, though.
You're normally paying 100, 120 points for this kind of model. Relatively easy to kill. On the upside, he has got a ward save, which is what you want on these. You need them to be a bit tougher. His command ability is very good, though. And the book doesn't have a lot of access to rerolls to hit. So I think this guy is definitely overcosted. You're definitely a bit sad to be paying more than like 130 for this. And when you combine that points with the fact that so many of the other units in the book are just too many points, it really does add up. But his command ability is very good. Much like the Shard Speaker, the guy who we get to next. 5 wounds and a 5-up save. He's got a spell called Reflect. He's a wizard, mortal, so we get one of them mortal spells. Reflection Eternal. 1 enemy unit within 12. Casts on a 6. -1 to wound rolls for that unit. Very, very good debuff spell.
Yes.
And additionally, he's got an ability which is used in the shooting phase but affects the combat phase. Enemy unit within 9. On a 3-up, you get +1 to wound it as well. So much like some of the skink wizards, much like the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, it's a sorcerer, it's a wizard, 1-cast wizard that's also got another ability as well, which is really good. He's also got a cool ability where if he casts a spell, he gets shadowy claws to attack within the combat phase, which don't really do enough. But I love the concept. I wish they'd made it like if he casts a spell, he gets like some real monster melee attack or something, because he's also 150 points, which is a lot. Again, so if you think you're taking 2 of those guys, 300 points for 2 foot buff characters. I think this guy's a bit more questionable because, number 1, you've got a caster's spell. Number 2, his other ability goes off on a 3, and he's a 5 wound, 150 point character in a shooting meta. So whilst I think he's very powerful, I just don't think he is good right now. But he definitely could be.
I think he's got good potential there. The model's got 2 really good buffs. He's what I want from a small miniature like that. So
if he gets his stuff off, he does a lot for you. If he gets his stuff off, but he's short range as well.
Yeah.
So he's a consideration, and again, it's incredible model, like incredible. Right now we're onto the new units. Right, so we're onto the new Seekers now. So we're going to start with Bliss Barb Seekers, which are the guys with bows. So for 180 points, you get 5 of these. And they're 4 wounds each with a 5-up save. That's 20 wounds for 180 points with a 5-up save. That's battle line levels of wound efficiency. Not something we normally see in expensive cavalry.
This is why I was saying it. Sorry to interrupt you. And this is what I was saying.
I was going to say. Yeah.
2 wounds about the old Seekers. Yeah. Why are these 4?
Why are all the other Seekers at 150 points and they've only got 2 wounds a model and they're on the same mount?
And it's just a human on top.
and to go back and fix a war scroll that nobody wants to use, and you've actually done it in the same book, and then not fix the other models, is, real shame, because all those other things are cool. Yeah, but it is bizarre. Makes no logical sense. But anyway, these are good. So let's focus on the fact that these models are sick. The Seekers on these models are much more dynamic than the old ones. They've got armor on them as well, which is cool. Like they're just so incredible. So these models, 3 attacks per model in combat with no rend, standard horse and man. But there is 5 of them, so that's 15 attacks. So that's sort of like crappy battle line level attacks. The main thing you're taking them for is their bow. 18-inch range, 3 attacks, 4s and 4s, 1 rend. And if you roll a 6 to wound, they do a mortal. Now, there's 5 of them for 180 points. That's 15 shots for 180 points. It's not bad, because, it's not the level of efficiency of like Lumineth archers and that kind of stuff, obviously, but it is a good level of archery efficiency. And what's cool about these, I think, is they can run and shoot and they move 14. So minimum 15 inches. The bow's got a range of 18. I've been playing a lot of historical stuff recently, or at least I've been talking about it because we're in lockdown. But a lot of those old armies in history, they used to use horse archers, right? And they used to harass flanks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think you can maybe viably do that with these in Age of Sigmar. So you're at 18-inch range. You shoot someone with all your bow shots. They're not going to catch you in one turn, most armies. And then the turn after, you move minimum 15 away from them and do it again. So as shooting units go, they're not quite as raw powerful in their shooting, but they're actually very hard. You can't just catch them by turn 2 or 3 and then they're all gone, which is super interesting. These I really like,
along with well pointed good wounds.
Yeah, well pointed for their wounds as well.
180 points for 5.
180. Yeah, I like these. That if they were battle line, I'd be there on them definitely. They're not battle line though.
No,
so
they're not going to be either.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. And their counterpart. Sorry, go on.
I've just got topic slightly. I've just read the descriptions of these Seekers and the other ones, and like maybe these are on bigger Seekers. It talks about Exalted Steed of Slaanesh. I don't know if these are like meant to be like another breed. Maybe
that's where they're going. Yeah.
Any law match just help me out.
Doesn't change the fact they could have also made the 2 wound ones 50 points cheaper either.
I just can't imagine there's not a reason.
Yeah.
You can't look at those 2 war scrolls and not ask that question. Yeah. So I'd love to hear the answer. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah. Slick Blade Seekers, their counterpart with the spears, are the same stats. 4 wounds. You get these are 200 points. I don't know why they're more expensive, because they are like not quite as good, but the models are probably better. The models are even better than the bow ones.
Do you think?
Yeah. I like the bow ones, but I love the armor on these and the big double-handed glaives they've got. The 14-inch move, reroll charges. So they are in your face on turn 1 a lot of the time, quite easily. 3 attacks each, 3s and 3s, Ren 1/1 damage. Unfortunately, though, like not the best attack profile in the world. For 200 points, 15 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 1/1 damage. They do a mortal on a 6, but that's going to be like 1.5 of those for 200 points. I get if you want a fast flank and harassing unit that's going to maybe go and attack people's backline, etc. These are not bad, but when you compare these to like Lumineth Dawn Riders, who are 130 points, less wounds per point, but they got a 4-up save. They've got all their different abilities for when they charge and they do stuff. They've got a wizard in the unit. They're the same speed. Like there's not even any, and they do this basically more damage than these for 130 points. These needed to hit harder. They needed like more abilities on the war scroll. They needed like the classic. If these had +1 damage on the charge or an extra rend on the charge, like most of these kind of units do, these would be good and solid. These, but they're just missing that a little bit. So
I think so too. I think it's something that Stephen's alluding to here as well on the chat that we mentioned earlier on, the ability now with range stuff to split fire. The other unit gives you that option, doesn't it? With this unit, lacks that, doesn't it? So all the good thing about all the archers in this army is being able to do that. Like we said before with the ether wings and stuff, you just put 3 shots here, 3 shots there, and the rest of your shots all into something you want to kill. You find the depravity off. So
I really like the bow armed ones. The slick blade seekers aren't there, and why they're more expensive than the other ones. You know, if they were 160 or something as well, they'd have a good amount of wounds for their points and acceptable attacks. They're just a bit too many points.
Here we are. Bliss Barb Seeker skin is twice as thick. Case closed, James Tinsdale says so.
James the Law Tinsdale there, yeah. They did have armor on them as well, to be fair. There's like 1% of their bodies covered in one armor plate. Okay, so on to the next new kit, which is the Painbringers and Twin Souls. So these guys are units of 5, 2 wound models, basically. So the Painbringers, the other best model in the release, I think,
I'm into the other one.
Oh yeah, at least when they're painted up anyway, with all their gold armor.
The basic foot archers are the best for me.
You think? Yeah, I mean they're all amazing.
They're all unreal, aren't they? I think there's so much hope for this, isn't there? Like,
so the name of this Painbringers, 5 2 wound guys with a 4-up save for 150 points. Right, poor wound efficiency, 4-up save, but they get to reroll all saves in melee. Right, and that's very good. However, Age of Sigmar is currently a shooting meta and a spells meta. So to make these worth their points survival-wise, you need that reroll saves, and they don't get it a lot of the time. This should have just been reroll saves, like in my opinion. But the other thing that they haven't got going for them, every model, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, and if they roll a 6 to wound, they do them all. Like, what's that attack profile for a 150-point unit?
Yeah,
it's like a battle line attack profile. Like, why have these not got 2 rend or 2s and 3s or 4 attacks or some other special rule? Like Dance of the Wailing Blade, a lot of the fluff for a lot of these is like they listen to music while they're fighting, and they're all into the song of whatever. And that's such a cool named ability. It could have been like an old Wood Elf War Dancer thing, you know, pick one of these things every turn, an extra rend, an extra damage, you know, like the Bone Giants have got in Ossiarch Bone Reapers. These are just really boring. Like the War Scroll is bad and boring. Where's the creativity in this War Scroll? It just doesn't do anything, which is a real shame for the kit, I think. But if they bring them down an appropriate amount of points and make them like 100, if that's a 100-point unit, that in my opinion, maybe
the points through this whole book are so high.
Mad, yeah.
So
and you have got to wonder, like, what is that? Is that because they've got summoning? Like, people always used to talk about summoning taxes. You got this with death a lot. Oh, skeletons should be more expensive because you can summon them back. Well, that doesn't really work, because if they're too expensive, you've lost the game before you get to summon them back. Or is it just because, Joe's asked that question in chat there, is the summoning potential factored into the points cost? I don't know, but something's got to be. But KO got the same thing, right? KO were bent in their original incarnation. They got a new book. They were somewhat over nerfed in terms of like what they can do. They do have some unique stuff going on. So does Slaanesh. But maybe just a little bit too timid with the points costs. The other half of this kit, that's a bit of a pun, Twin Souls. Simbresh Twin Souls. These have got 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, 2 damage, no rend. That's a more appropriate attack profile for these kind of models.
Yeah.
Like that would be, if that was on the other
move 8 as well.
Yeah, and also move 8. Yeah, if that was on the other unit, they'd be getting a bit closer to being playable. And their abilities is called Fraction. Same stat line otherwise, except move 8. Their weapons are also range 2, which is good because these are on 32 mils by the looks of it. I think that's a good thing. Start your hero phase, you pick one of the following abilities to apply until the next hero phase, and you've got to alternate them every time you pick. You can either choose to reroll hits, or you can choose to get a 5-up after save. So that's a lot better of a War Scroll for these kind of things. But they are 170 points for 5.
Can be battle line if you got that load of pain, same as the other ones.
Yeah, 5 models, 10 wounds. Like, turn 1, they don't get to pick that defensive one, and if the other person goes first, you can shoot them off before they get the 5-up save. If they were even worth shooting off, not really very good. These at all. This entire kit is not really very good. However, the models are incredible. I'm going to buy them to do other things with. It's my intention with these, but definitely for.
Could they just be Chaos Warriors?
What's that? They could be Chaos Warriors. Could be good for conversions. I do think about these 2 units. I do think if we're not talking our top end like competitive, these are playable, right? Like the reroll save guys are playable when you're not playing against shooting every round.
Yeah,
If you always got their save reroll, not against shooting, that that reroll saves is quite decent. So these are definitely playable, and for people who love the army, want to play some Age of Sigmar, etc., kind of thing, you're not going to be like mega sad putting these on the table. Just at competitive level, we're not going to be. I don't think. Unlike the next unit,
the Keepers of Secrets are going to force like so many units out, though, aren't they? Like,
yeah, because the army is still everything the army does is still a Keeper of Secrets army.
Yeah,
really. Bliss Barb Archers, the next ones. 6-inch move, 1 wound, 6 up save, range 18, 2 attacks, 4s and 4s, Ren 1. 160 points for 11 models, which is weird because the 11th model is a homunculus who gives you +1 to wound while he's alive. So very squishy, although an extra wound for that 160 points is a little bit of a thing. 160 points, you get 20 attacks, 4s and 4s, Ren 1 damage. And they can run and shoot as well, so they're going to get into range turn 1 to do that, no problem, and maybe be able to shoot the target of choice.
You're going to be able to get these. You're going to get these to like you can get these to 3s with some rerolls as well, can't you, and stuff?
Yeah,
so
you can
3s to 3s to wound.
Yeah, so
they're a good
2
bow.
attack, 4s and 4s, Ren 1's decent, right? The obvious comparison for these is Lumineth Archers. Right, like Lumineth Archers also have an 18-inch profile that is 3s and 4s, which is basically the same as this Ren 1, but they only get 1 attack, but they obviously do mortals. Now, I did the math on this. 10 of these does almost identical to the decimal point, like 4.38 damage to a save 4 unit.
Okay.
Assuming the Lumineth have got the spell on. So if you're shooting at save 4 units, these are about the same in there. If you're shooting at weaker units, like you want to take a bunch of skinks off the table, these are better, which is often where the Lumineth Archers fall down. They're only really good at sniping low wound things, whereas these have got volume fire. And when you start giving them rerolls and stuff, they've got output more volume. But obviously the Lumineth Archers have got the sniper shot from very long range, take out carriers, etc. So these are not as good as Lumineth Archers, for example. They're not as good as the Snake Archers out of dock either, but they are battle line.
Yeah, I like this is the other thing with fun. They're just straight up your battle line. You've got them. You're not taking them and wardens. You're not taking witch elves or sisters and them, are you? They're probably just going to be there.
Yeah, they're a pretty kit you would love to put on the board. And I think, as we said before, one of the problems Slaanesh has always had is it didn't have any good battle line that was really functional at minimum unit size. Now they are at 160 points, which is a bit of a They definitely could have stood to be 140. These, like, I don't know why they're that expensive, really. But they definitely are good. You're definitely going to use them as some of your battle line in most armies. Maybe not all 3 units to squeeze the points in. But they're good. You also definitely can take a unit of 30 and buff them and shoot stuff. They might be worse than the Lumineth or the dock versions, but shooting is still more powerful than most things in the game. You're definitely going to use these.
There's a Warscroll battalion we'll be getting to any minute as well and stuff. So
yeah, great thing to have access to in an army that traditionally just runs at you and fights you as well. A bunch of shooting, and you combine them as your battle line with some Bliss Barb Seekers, and you end up with a whole army with all of it's got shooting. And I think there's definitely some builds in there. Next one we're on is Slangor Fiend Bloods. This was maybe my favorite model of the release. Like I don't know. I just can't decide. There's like too many.
This is the one I don't like. This is the unit that I was like, please don't be what I have to take in my army, because I just didn't want the army to include them. I wanted to be about the humans more than other things.
See, I like everything. So these have got 3 wounds a model. You get 3 of them and a 5 up save, and they move 8. Which is okay to start off with, and then they got a points cost of 140. So wounds efficiency wise is definitely not there, but it never is with these like medium bruiser units.
No,
what we're looking for most of the time is them to do good damage in combat. Right now, their main profile is their claws: 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, Ren 1 damage, +1 attack if they charged. End of the combat phase, you pick an enemy unit. You roll a dice for each model in this unit, so 3 for 140 points. Every 4 plus a mortal at the end of the combat phase after some of them have died. And that's it.
Well, they got the gilded weapon, right? Have they all got gilded weapon?
Hang on. I'm gonna go to that now after say that.
One model has the gilded weapon.
Yes, that was the mistake I made when I was talking about not reading the first paragraph before. So when I first read these, they've also got another weapon on the profile. 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, round 1, 2 damage. And I was looking at these and I was thinking, okay, 5 attacks per model, goes up to 7 when they charge.
Yeah.
For a total of like 12 damage per model, which is 10 damage per model, is quite decent. But only the champions got the gilded weapon because I didn't read the first paragraph. Yeah. Because in my head, when I read that, I was like, these aren't very good. They're 140 points. They're very easy to take off. They've got no cool rules, but at least they've got a good damage output for their points. That seems fine. So in my head, with the gilded weapon, they were like, okay, but then they haven't even got that. I don't know. Did someone go home early when they were writing this war scroll, and just forget to go back and finish it? This is a great model. You're into them or not. It's a really great model, and it just makes no sense for it to be so flat and bland. And if it was flat and bland and points efficient, at least you could put them on the table. If it was like a 90-point unit or something, you got 3 of them for 30 points a model. I mean, you still wouldn't use them if they were 30 points a model, but at least you'd maybe sometimes want to put that unit on the table in a less competitive environment. But this is so mediocre. But a fantastic model, though.
Yeah, I know. Again, I'm not.
This to me is like, what other game can I play and buy these models for?
I guess I'm happy because I don't have to have them.
Like them. Yeah. And the other thing as well to note on this, one of the things I was looking at was it's lost the Brayherd keyword that they normally get. So whereas you used to be able to ally in the Shaman from the Beast of Chaos book to give stuff plus 3 inches movement, any given army that's got any kind of beastmen in, you were always allying that Shaman in to make them a bit faster so you could do tricky things like run charge on turn 1. You could do that in Tzeentch, for example, with their ones because they had the keyword. This has not even got that keyword anymore. So that they can't even do that super edge case thing anymore. So I'm not...
Everyone is outraged about Slangor. I am pleasantly happy that I won't have to use it. So
yeah, it's anyway. And yeah, not everything's dreams for anyone who wants these.
Not everything's good, and 3 model units are never good. So
never good.
I don't know.
Yeah. Now, so lastly, we've got the Dread Pageant, which is the is it Warcry or Shadespire? I get them all mixed up now. Anyway,
that's Joe. He's the expert on all this stuff. So
So there's 4 guys in it, and it's 120 points. I think forgot that then. Yeah, 4 guys. One of the guys has got 3 wounds, and he's also got a 4-up ward save. So 6 wound unit with a bit of a ward save for 120 points. Not a great start. But they have actually got a reasonable amount of damage output, these, weirdly. So they've got 4 attacks, 4s and 3s, Ren 2 damage on the Slangor. Where was that profile on the previous War Scroll?
Yeah.
And then the boss has got 4 attacks, 2s and 3s, Ren 1, D3 damage. And then we've got another 3s and 3s, Ren 1 damage. So they got a respectable damage output for 120 points. And if they were a bit cheaper, so their wound count, and they've also got a little bow as well, which isn't that good, but it can go and plink something for a depravity, which is another thing it can do.
Split fire, one there.
Yeah. and also this unit, when it rolls a 6 to hit, it does a mortal. So that bow can do mortal hits, and so can other attacks. So the damage output on this, I think you could arguably take this for 120 points as a filler unit, just with the crazy amount of damage for its points, if it didn't have a wound issue. If this was 100 points, I think you could stick this in armies just to go, this murders things, this.
The Daughters of Khaine one has gone down to 80 points.
Yeah. You can't charge 120 points for 6 wounds. You just can't.
Mm.
But, that's, again, if you want to use that unit and you've got it and you're playing casual game, you can put that on the table and actually do cool stuff. It would murder things that are hits, which is kind of nice.
All right. I'm getting stunned out here.
Sorry. Right, so...
You're
3
right.
models are never good. Eels. Sorry, yeah. Ether Wings. There's another one. Three model bruiser unit.
People listen to the podcast. I'm getting grief in the chat with every 3 model unit that is actually good. So
yeah, one of them is the best unit in the game. So endless spells. No real changes to the endless spells other than what I mentioned before. Is the Wheels of Excruciation doesn't affect Slaanesh anymore. I think that's the only change to them. The Dreadful Visage is still, you're never going to use it. The Mesmerizing Mirror is still good. Did that go up to 70 points, Mesmerizing Mirror, at some point?
I don't recall, but it's anyway. I think that's really good now because just the pressure it puts on generating depravity in your opponent's turn. So
yeah, 60 points, and there is an abundance of spellcasters written on better to do in this army as well. So that's a good thing. No opportunity cost. The wheels, I've never been a fan of the wheels personally. Does a few mortals, just costs too many points, like 50 points for a few mortals.
AoE mortals, though, even better. I like
this army doesn't have 50 points to throw away on spending your last points, though, because they're already spent because everything's so expensive.
Well, the mortal stuff is.
Yeah. So let's just quickly look at the battalions. Is the last thing we haven't done. So the original battalions are still there. Battalions are highly nerfed in points. Not different from what they already were, though, I don't think. But like Epicurean Revelers, the Demonette one, makes you do mortals on wound roll of a 6. Could make Demonettes quite good, but it's 180 points. It's like so many points. Supreme Cyberites is still the same as it used to be. So extra command points and dropping down your number of drops with heroes. That's still really good. 150 points, but you're still probably going to take it a lot because you want the command points and you want the access to the extra artifact. And to get your drops lower. Seeker Cavalcade now includes the new Seekers as well. And that lets you pile in and fight when you were in 6. That is probably not going to see play now just because Seekers are so nerfed. And close to Slick Blade, Seekers aren't good enough to make use of that ability, really. But a very powerful battalion that may see play in the future if the points on those units come down to acceptable levels. And then we're on to new ones. So the Depraved Carnival. For some reason, every book that's got shooting in it now needs the ability to shoot again in your hero phase, and that's what this does. So pick a unit of Blitzbarb Archers, they shoot in your hero phase, right? The main problem with this is you've got to have 3 Lords of Pain or Shard Speakers and 3 units of Blitzbarb Archers. So the Archer's not a problem. 30, 10, 10, battle line fulfilled, drops low. The characters are 150 points each, though, which is problematic. And you definitely
and then you double up on one of them. It's
this is about 1,500 points for this battalion with a 30, 10, 10 and the 3 heroes and the battalion cost. And although it's got a powerful ability, you haven't really got an army at that point. But in some games, it will still just win the game because it's a lot of shooting. I think in this personally, I think you probably take 2 Lords of Pain and 1 caster. You want the redundant Lord of Pain for the reroll and hit rolls if one of them gets shot off the table, and you don't quite need 3 of them. You take 1 caster, but yeah, the Archers should be 140 probably.
You could take 2 Wizards though as well.
You could take 2 Wizards, yeah, you could. But the Archers probably want to be 140, and the heroes are all like 20 or 30 points too many. So this is like there's 200 points of points you don't really want to spend in this battalion, or at least things you don't want to double up on a lot. So whilst no doubt we will see this, where a unit of 30 of these shooting you and then shooting you again, I don't think that it's like quite like it's tier 2 competitive probably, just because shooting's so good.
Yeah, nothing jumps out obviously to me to be able to do it turn 1 as well, bar like endless spell teleport and to be able to use the shooting
the hero phase. Yeah, you can't use it in the hero phase without doing that.
Yeah, so without doing some stuff, it always, like I said earlier on, it hovers over me, the chaos. And we're not going to talk about a load of lists here, but I can't wait to read the other stuff again, and try and figure out if there's anything in these other books where it all crosses over. So
yeah. Nobles of Excesses is 3 to 6 units of Painbringers and Twin Souls. They reroll wound rolls from melee weapons when they charge. That would be really good if those units were good. It's a powerful book for a battalion and would get and they are battle line and they would get your drops right down. So that would be cool if they were better. And then Exalted Speed Knights, which is possibly the most 7-year-old name of a battalion I've ever seen. What's your army called? I'm the Speed Knights. Whoever come up with that name's amazing. I love you very much. 2 to 3 units of Bliss Barb Seekers, Slick Blade Seekers, and Normal Seekers. Before the first battle round, D6 units can move 6. That's like an incredible buff.
Yeah, it's really good.
But there are just too many units that aren't good enough in there. If the normal Seekers weren't there, you could take some minimum-sized Slick Blade Seekers and then just take a bunch of the Archers if the normal Seekers weren't in there as well, but there's just a bit too much stuff. So that's the end of the book. I think to sum up, I would say that it has definitely got some things going for it. I think the buffs to the Allegiance abilities are very powerful. Keepers are still super good. You've now got the ability to run some Archers with your Keepers, which is good and helps with the new Depravity generation. And I think you've got options to do things like around the new Gluttonous guy, given a bubble of -1 to hit. Like, you can get those Keepers to just live on few wounds, then heal themselves up. The healing spells have got better. And I do think you can do some really interesting stuff with the Horse Archers as well. I don't think any of the new battalions are particularly going to light the world up. I do think the Archer one, will win a tournament somewhere, probably, at some point, which is a bit of a thing. But yeah, I think a few of the new release models are a bit of a miss for the book, mostly due to points costs. The entire book is very expensive. And I'm not sure it drives you in any direction other than just playing some stuff with 3 Keepers of Secrets anymore either.
Yeah. Dave O'Leary's just popped up with the chat saying the same thing. This is why I look at it, it's very similar to how it was before, right? It's going to do its things with Keepers. It's got some different options now on the summoning. And for me, it's how good is this summoning versus what it was before? How much can you generate from this? How many more models are you going to put on the board via it? Yeah. A big miss on the Mortals for me. Like, I don't
think it's a big miss. I think it's a net positive for the book. It's a miss in terms of being able to run a Mortal Slaanesh army, certainly. But for me, I think Dave asked if I was playing this tomorrow, what would I take? I think I would be running 3 Keepers of Secrets in Supreme Cyberites. I would be running 30 10-10 Bliss Barb Archers. And then I would be probably running one of the small casters that with Acquiescence, I think. And I would be aiming to smash people into melee with the Keepers using Godseekers, generate as much depravity as possible with the Archers, splitting fire all over the place, doing as much stuff as possible. I would be aiming for the classic Slaanesh first turn charges a lot of the time because I want to start summoning on turn 2. So what I'd be aiming for is to generate enough depravity by getting my models in combat that on turn 2 I'm summoning another Keeper. And the big buff to that kind of army in this book is while them Keepers are murdering you in melee, there's now 50 Archers shooting at you. It might not be the most cost-efficient Archers in the game right now, but you are dealing with 3 Keepers in your face while getting shot by 50 Archers. And I think that's quite a powerful thing. The summoning's very good, and if the Locusts go off, the Locusts are even better. Like
the Locusts are better. The summoning might be better.
Yeah, the summoning is better. I'd say
it's not better than the
original version. Yeah, but in some ways it is, and in some games it's actually better than the original one as well. One of the problems with Slaanesh was if any of your pieces, like if your Keepers didn't get into combat turn 1, because you have to take a lot of the stuff to make you fast to get them into combat. If your Keepers didn't get into combat, if the opponent could take your other heroes off the board and focus your Keepers down, if the opponent could just shoot all your battle lines, you couldn't hold objectives while your Keepers were fighting. There was loads of ways it could fall to bits. That doesn't happen anymore because of the way depravity, or some armies like Goblin, you just couldn't generate depravity against. That doesn't happen so much anymore, so it's a bit more consistent. It used to be a Mega Glass Cannon. Now it's got more going on. Like I wouldn't really want to fight someone charging me turn 1 with 3 Keepers and 50 Archers at the same time. That's a pretty difficult thing to deal with, I think. So
just blitz your screens off, can't they, as well? So easily now, to get through with those Keepers. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too. I think this is
just JP's just said the same thing in chat. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's all that kind of stuff, and they've got a new fly spell. The healing spells, which were the most important ones, have been buffed a little bit as well. I think for me, this is going to work out the same way as the KO book worked out. Pick it up, we look at it, we go, I think this has got some play. This book, it's not as bent as it used to be, which is a bit of a shock to us all. Like particularly if you were, maybe not hoping for it to be as bent, but we were hoping for it to be clearly tier 1. It's not clearly tier 1, but I think when you actually start playing it and putting it on more. Much like the KO book, when we said this is a decent book, and then it panned out that it's actually a very good book. Maybe not in every single situation, but a lot of the time, I think this is going to be the same. It's still going to be keepers, but now you've got Bliss Barb Archers. You've got options on Mad Horse Archers that can do some really interesting stuff. Some armies just won't be able to deal with them Horse Archers. Like, if you're not a shooting army, how do you deal with them Horse Archers shooting you whilst there's keepers in your face? If they were battle line, they'd be right there.
It's a fast army,
and it's a fast is always good. Fast
doesn't have teleports, but has solid summoning. Threatens everywhere. So interesting.
I'm not as I'd hope for a little bit more. Definitely. In some ways, I'm happy I don't have to paint a whole army of them mortals because I don't even know where I'd start. But I am happy that it's got some new interesting ways to play the army, and new good stuff to do. So I'm really looking forward to it. It definitely makes me want to finish painting me Slaanesh now. I'm excited to buy a bunch of those archers. I did mean to ask you to bring me a box with the book when you drop.
I had one in the car as well.
Yeah, I saw you had one. Yeah, I'm a bit sad that I don't get to assemble them now, but that can be something for after I've painted all the other models.
I'm going out on deliveries after this, mate. So get your order in before 1 o'clock, and I'll drop you some off.
While we're on that topic, before we change to the next book, if you've not ordered your Slaanesh stuff yet, despite the fact we've just panned a couple of the kits, if you've not ordered your Slaanesh stuff, it's obviously up for pre-order now on JustPlayGames.uk. The book is good. It's just not quite what we'd hoped to be, but I don't think I have seen a few reactions so far that have been like, this book is absolute garbage. There's quite a few nerfs in there that were unwarranted, like some of the artifacts, that kind of stuff. I think the nerf to the keeper's ability is actually reasonable, like not that bad. Yeah, and I think it's a good thing for the game for them not to just do it on themselves over and over again. But it's going to suck when a keeper charges you, rolls as Locust, and your unit can't fight at all, even if he whiffs. Yeah, that's going to be so sucky to play against while the 50 archers shooting you. So if you are going to pick up some Slaanesh stuff, I definitely would recommend it, particularly if you love the models as well. Grab some from JustPlayGames.uk, and we'll have them to you next week. I'm looking forward to getting mine.
Yeah, no, excellent. So, guys, that's great. Look, and if you've enjoyed anything so far, please, give the video a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more from us as well, and you can join in our chats with our Discord service, our WhatsApp groups as well. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. So if you're just here for the Hedonites of Slaanesh, thanks, but we're going to be straight into Daughters of Khaine now. Time for me to talk a lot more.
Yeah, time for you to talk about Daughters of Khaine. I skim-read through this book last night to make sure that I was on the same page as everything, but this is the one you've spent more time on, isn't it? And I'm keen to see what this does. Yeah. What I have seen so far is that it is incredibly amazing. So let's see if that's true.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's very similar to what was before. My review is going to be a lot of comparisons to what was there before. Just straight up identifying changes, etc. Because a lot of it is the same. Except they've really expanded out on the temples in this. There's a lot more rules for temples. They're fully flashed out. This was an early book. They weren't artifact locked and things like that. Now they've got artifacts in and stuff like that. So there's a lot more expansion on those as well. And again, book and dice, etc.
I was surprised when I was putting this book side by side with the old one. When I was looking through it last night. I was super surprised when I realized just how old the Daughters of Khaine book was. You see the old typeset and the old layouts, the old temple, the same as the Deepkin one. It's like it hasn't got they didn't have the fixed artifacts and all that kind of stuff. And yet, the book was badly internally balanced, wasn't it? You had all the snakes and everything, which were just unplayable, which obviously they haven't been since Marathi came out. But it's cool. Yeah. to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. So we're going to fly over allegiance abilities first. What do you think?
I think these are pretty good. So Fanatical Faith with its 6-up mortal save, like, has always been a good ability on this army. Any army getting any kind of ward save is good. Although 6-up ward saves on their own don't necessarily always do enough. You know, there's lots of armies in the game, lots of ways to get these. You always don't do enough. But their blood rights are good. Every turn these escalate. I not 100% sure how much these have changed, but they get a lot of buffs, quite a lot of rerolls, and that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. So yeah, overall, not anything really major that's changed here. Something I am interested in. There's quite a lot of units in the book that like advance these abilities. You know, like you start at round 2 or whatever, and these abilities are cumulative. And there's quite a few abilities in the book that like start you at round 2. If you start at round 2, do you get the one from round 1?
Yeah, it all stacks up as you go, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure you do. By the way, the rules are written. Maybe chat. Maybe this is a. I don't know that much about Daughters of Khaine. What I know about Daughters of Khaine is what all of the armies we used to have to play against did inside out. The book itself, I don't know a lot about. But the way these are written is you gain an ability in a battle round, and then every turn after you gain a new one, and you keep all the ones that you gained in the previous battle round. But some of them start you at 2, so you never gain the number 1, which means you don't get to also keep it.
Well, look, there's a few different ways it's worded throughout them. We'll identify that as we go through. I think.
I'd be interested to see that in an FAQ, but it's, you know, and it's not that big a deal because the round 1 is just reroll run rolls of 1. But you know, it's not the most important ability. But yeah, overall, allegiance ability is pretty much the same as they were.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, my notes are these are the same allegiance abilities, same things on every turn, etc. So yeah, except there's a bunch more temples to pick from, isn't there? So
yeah, now they've combined the Marathi Broken Realms book into this, haven't they?
Yes, yeah, and with some changes,
and that's had some changes as well.
Yeah. So next up, we've got artifacts and command traits for these. So there's some new command traits. They've split them up as well. So you've got like ones for the elves, you've got ones for Bloodrack Medusas, and you've got ones for the Iron Scales now as well. So there's a whole bunch of new ones in there as well. I've highlighted a few that I think look pretty good. So in the elf one, there's a bit of a change. There's a +1 damage each successful attack made by the general. Now that actually works on shooting now as well. It used to just be on melee. So I'm not sure if there's any decent little shooting elf units in there that'll get that bonus to there as well.
Doesn't one of the cauldrons have a cauldron of blood style attack like it's always used to have had?
Yeah, I think it's something about doing things on mortals though with those, isn't it? It's like within range as well. There's another change here as well on the bravery one. It's +2 bravery for the units now instead of it being using the leaders one. So they're the changes from before. Otherwise, these ones are as is really. So they don't look anything amazing to me in there really. But
no, and a lot of the time there's not really necessarily anything that a lot of these are gonna go on. But
I think a lot of this few Daughters of Khaine players already are looking for what the differences are and what the new things are. There is so much the same. So
I really did have to put the books next to each other. But again, I mean, you're always taking a temple, so command traits.
Exactly, That's why we skim over these so much, really, don't we? The Bloodmac Medusa ones as well. There's 3 for those, and there's a decent one that's +1 casting, dispelling, and unbinding. So yeah, not bad. And the Iron Scales got a 4+. You get an extra CP. Yeah. So, but again, you know, command traits, use any of the temples. Yeah. That's the difference, you know. I think they used to get to use a lot of this because of how they were set out, but you know, it's so different now. You're going to see less of them. So artifacts, some of the changes that I've got noted down here on the Daughters of Khaine hero ones. Now there's a heal that's now D3, not 1, so that's a little change there. And the +1 save one is now a 5+ shrug. So a shrug
which
when you've already got a shrug.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't stack anymore. Yeah, that is pretty good though. If presumably if you're not playing Hagnar or if you're not in range for Hagnar, because one of the things they used to take these artifacts for a lot was just making the cauldrons more survivable. So I imagine that's probably quite a nice thing to have access to, especially now you don't have. They used to use Ignax's scales
before you had +1 save though, right? Now you Hagnar, now you've not. So
well, true. Yeah, actually, that's a fair point. In some ways, it's a nerf as well, isn't it? I guess. Yeah.
But again, none of them really jump out as anything special to me there. So a lot of similar things that were already really lots of bits about just 4+ save against mortal wounds from spells and things. So yeah.
Good thing about the Khaine is they always have a battalion, right? Like the battalions are really good, and I think that is still true. Yeah. And you often get access to a couple of artifacts, so pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I think some of the other ones might be where you might go. Like, so next we've got the Bloodrack Medusa ones. Now, this is for Bloodrack Medusas. It used to say these artifacts were for wizards. So I'm not exactly sure if that rules out any wizards. But I think these are the only wizards. Again, a bit weak on the dock. There's a +1 casting roll 1 there. But that's lost its reroll 1s. So that used to get to reroll 1s and get +1 casting. So that's been dropped down a little bit. But it works for all spells, the +1 now. It used to only work on shadow, Law of Shadow spells. So if they've got like Warscroll 1s or
the endless spell, the new big endless spell as well. Is a good thing for that, maybe. Yeah.
I know the interesting one. We always like to look out for like where the word change things. There's one here that used to let you wound on a 2+. Now it says +2 to your wound roll. So
right, interesting. Yeah. I guess the problem with saying with wound on a 2+ is when you get things like -1 to wound, it's not 100% clear how those things are supposed to interact. So this simplifies it a bit, doesn't it? In a way.
There's a once per battle teleport in there for the wizard as well. Pick them up, put them anywhere on the battlefield, 9 away. So yeah, good. But again, so much similar in this book, guys, to the last one. There's so much. So I'm massively going to highlight the changes here. Even if they're really, really subtle ones. So, but then you've got priest ones, which you're probably going to have a few priests. So there's reroll prayer rolls of 1, and there's no real changes here. It's all the same stuff. So you got the hag brew +1 to rune rolls for the bearer. It's much of a muchness there, I think, for me.
I think the Iron Circle, like the reroll and prayer rolls of 1, was always like the omnipresent artifact, wasn't it? And again, now they're going to have 2 artifacts, but they're going to be forced to take 1 from the temple. So I imagine you're probably just still going to see that an awful lot in these armies.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want to skim over these things, but there's might be a little something sneaky in there that I've not picked up on, but a lot similar. So just going to highlight some of the changes that we've got. So next up, we've got the spells.
Yeah. This was my first WTF react when I read these spells.
Really? Yeah. Go on.
Book. Yeah. So the change to Mind Razor, which was arguably already one of the best spells in the game. And was certainly the best spell Daughters of Khaine had. It was like first thing that went into every list. And it used to give you an extra Ren, which was amazing, and an extra damage if the enemy unit had less bravery than you, which didn't really happen very much. Now it's an extra damage if you charge.
Yes.
So a unit of 30 Witch Elves on the charge gets a Rend and +1 damage. Like, one of the most overpowered spells ever in Age of Sigmar was the Realm of Fire spell that give you +1 damage to your weapons, because it's just something you shouldn't have when your unit's got 120 attacks or whatever. +1 damage to a unit of Witch Elves, just flat. Like, that is bonkers. It has gone up by 1 in casting value, right? Though it's an 8 now instead of 7.
Yes, that is one of the things. It's gone from 7 to 8.
It does make it pretty tough to cast, but obviously you've got things that can make that a bit more consistent. But you're still going to do it. Like, that's just whatever those Witch Elves hit, they're going to delete. And I was surprised that the best auto take spell in the book needed a buff, I guess.
Well, the other change is on Mirror Dance. So it's cast on a 6 now, not a 4+, and it's changed how it teleports things around. This is where it switched models around.
Yeah.
So now you pick two heroes up that are holding within 18 in the caster, and you can teleport them anywhere 9 away. From enemy balls of battle, basically just it's got a teleport, same as everything. You can pull them out of combat now as well if they were in combat, which you couldn't do before. So there's less restrictions, but it's 9 away now, not 6 away. I think it was in the previous one. So that's
powerful though. Like
it is powerful.
Teleport 2 Marathis, or the cauldrons in Daughters of Khaine were always an interesting unit for me. Like, they're not very tough or hard to kill, but they hit like trucks. And like being able to like teleport, maybe there's a thing in there where you teleport some cauldrons and just go and murder someone with your avatars once they're active, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, you have to pick 2. It says pick 2. Sorry, that was a question from chat. Do you have to pick 2? Yes. So if you've only got 1 hero, you can't use it. But luckily, when you've got Marathi, you've always got 2 heroes because you can't kill the freaking things. So
you'll have plenty of heroes, won't you? So
at least 2.
They're the 2 big changes there, and they are big changes. So popular spell, we've just seen the Mirror Dance one be part of like a combo in that Queen's Gambit list that has had quite a bit of press, which that list's been sort of decimated. There's been lots of combo breaks on the way you sequence things in here now. So
what's the Queen's Gambit list? Is that just teleporting archers? Is that what we're calling it?
Just teleporting archers and some sequencing with heroes to get them to shoot twice and that.
Why does it get a name when you just read the book and it's just like the most obvious?
The guy gave it a name, and Queen's Gambit is on top of it, and come on.
Right, yeah. Well done. Yeah, teleport archers.
All Age of Sigmar players watched Queen's Gambit, right, and instantly thought we were like some special chess gang, didn't we? Where we're not, because we just roll dice and
I'm okay with the name. Like, obviously it's got Marathi in it. It's the Queen's Gambit. She's doing a bunch of stuff, shoots up and all that. Good. That sound. I just hate naming things. Like, I hate naming lists like that. Anyway.
So prayers are up next.
Yeah.
So these have got what have they got? Right, the big point I've made here is the Blessings of Khaine stayed. Now, I don't know. I really expected to see that go away. It has had a lot of negative press over the time. Like, we're wasting time, we're re-rolling dice, we're rolling all these dice again, and there's been lots of moves to take that away. So
it was just super stupid powerful as well. Like on top of that.
Yeah. Well, it's still here. So there you go. That's one thing. And the only other note I made was on the Cataclysm of Murder's Word. And you see this through the book a little bit now. And see next hero phase, if an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a melee weapon is a 6. Well, this isn't the one I wanted to say, I don't think, but
they've pretty much just stayed the same, the prayers, haven't they? As far as I can see.
That's it. That's the only change that I've got really down. So there's a change of wording somewhere on some spells. I'm going to pick that up in a minute. It doesn't do anything, but it basically it's like unmodified. It's rolls of 6 after rerolls, but before modifiers. I think I'll pick it up. It's just a little different thing that may in the future
interact differently.
Yeah, things come along. They've moved away from saying unmodified 6s and just changed it a little bit. So, but yeah, right. Let's get on to the best bit of this book, I think.
I agree.
Which are all the temples. So there's some new temples here. I think I'm not sure if there's one new one or there were just 2 that were in the Broken Realms Marathi. One of them was obviously.
And it's really good. One of the reasons I really like this is because there's 6 temples in this book now, and the original book only had 1, which I think is really nice that they've added so many new temples.
There was 1.5, right?
one and another one that people continually tried to force when it wasn't any good.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, Hagnar. It's
the first temple. This is called in the lore.
Sorry.
In the lore, this is called the first temple.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So this has got something new. Its ability, that it now adds 1 to the number of current battle rounds when determining the abilities gained. So that's a change.
This is where I come back to my thing on the wording. The wording of the allegiance ability says you gain the thing equal to the current battle round, and like it says, like when the battle rounds advance, you keep the ones you've gained previously. So because you start at battle round 2, you never gain the other one previously. Yeah, it says you gain an ability each battle round, so you never gain number 1 because you start at turn 2.
Yeah.
So raw, I mean, I don't
get them all. Yeah.
I don't care about this particularly. Just raw right now, you don't get the first one as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Well, the command trait. So this is the start of the theme throughout this book. You know, it used to be within 7 of your general, your fanatical faith roll save was a 5+ instead of a 6. So
yeah,
it's there, but it's wholly within 12 of your general.
Yeah.
So,
which is a nerf, undoubtedly.
Yeah, massive nerf, yeah. But it's just to bring in line with the whole rest of the game is. So, but still there, still 5+, still get a reroll. You know, but a lot more restrictions now. So
I think the like is with that, like also because this army is full of like units of 30 or big units of big base snakes as well. And it is hard to keep those wholly within 12 of the general, and their generals very often don't really want to be too exposed because they're easy to kill because it's normally a cauldron as well. So that is a nerf.
All those cauldrons and shrines have gone up so many points as well. So they're incredible amount of points increases.
So that is a nerf, definitely. I still don't think rerollable 5+ ward save should exist, regardless of how much it's nerfed. Well, maybe if it was nerfed to wholly within 3, I would feel different. But yeah, I think that's like, you know, at least it's nerfed a bit.
I'm super shocked it's still there, really. But they got a really, really poor command ability, right? Like, it's awful. You add 3 to command points. You add 3 to the move of one of your cauldrons. Like, I've not read that wrong, am I? That's it. Like,
no, I read the same. It's kind of weird. It's if you want to burn 2 command points to go 9 inches extra, you can. Like, and I don't know. I mean, the cauldrons don't even have anything to keep up with particularly. I guess there is like an edge case there where your witch elves charge off to go and murder something, and you can't quite get your cauldron into wholly 12 of them because they've charged off, and you really need to burn a command point to get an extra 3 inches. Yeah. It's definitely not unused. I mean, to be fair, a lot of command abilities in temples and things are just hot garbage and you will never use them. At least that one's got a case where it could be used. Yeah. So it's not very good, but it's definitely got a use.
And then you've got a melee weapon then, which is +1 damage. So that's good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, on the right,
you know, if there's the right model there for the right weapon, it's decent.
Yeah, so I think you make the avatar damage 4 on the back of a cauldron. That's certainly not nothing, especially given it goes twice in melee a lot of the time. So that's all right. We've all had a unit murdered by a cauldron accidentally when we were learning how to play against Daughters of Khaine, haven't we? So that's interesting.
So next up is Draichi Ganeth. So there's been a few other things where there was certain Warscroll battalions that had changes to what units could be in them. That's gone. You know, they've sort of replaced that with these fully flashed out temples instead now. So this one's had a focus put on it as well for witch elves and sisters of slaughter. So this one's all about them, all about making those better. There's the new ability now is changed from being rend to +1 to hit. Yeah. So that's I guess good. You know, there's already rend available. You know, through Cataclysm Murder.
Well, it's good. It's good because their ability is now get rend, and the command ability is +1 to hit. So that's like quite a big buff.
Yeah,
for them, for the Sisters of Slaughter.
Yeah, so they get the rend when they charge with Sisters of Slaughter and Witch Elves. They got the command ability that can give them +1 to hit for attacks with melee weapons, which are really good. Then they've got a bravery, +1 bravery command trait, and another +2 attack on a weapon one. So they buff Witch Elves and Sisters a lot.
The only mild problem with that, I really like Sisters of Slaughter for the 6-inch pile, and I prefer Witch Elves. I think they're better generally, although I haven't looked at the points in this book. But
yeah, there's a lot of points changes. We won't talk about them.
Those the +1 rend doesn't work if you just, you know, one of the classic ways around a lot of abilities in the past was you run your 6-inch pile unit up to an enemy, and then you pile it in. If you do that in this, you don't get the +1 rend. So mine a bit of anti-synergy there. But I think this is, when I read this after reading Hagnar, I was like, oh, there's a second choice now, because that's really good.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably still not Hagnar good, but it's definitely very good.
Sure. The next one then, the Kraith. So this has had some changes and got some extra rules. So this one used to be, if a unit was within 3 of the enemy on a 6, Sister Slaughter, on a roll of a 6, it could fight again. Okay.
Yeah.
They've made this now a 5+, and you don't have to be within 3. You just have to already have fought in the phase. So it's better.
They get that 6-inch pile, basically. End of the combat phase, on a 5-up, you get to pile 6 and go again, which is boss.
But it's a 5-up roll, right? As competitive guys, that's not what we're out looking for, but it is. Strong,
but I mean, even the potential of going twice just by rolling a 5 is, if you got 3 units out there or whatever doing it, it's pretty good.
Yeah, the little change to the artifact, it now automatically does D6 mortal wounds. You don't have to make a roll. So it's got a command trait where if the general is on the battlefield and any units were destroyed by attacks made by them, you get an extra command. By Kraith units, you get an extra command point. So not a bad EP generation. That's a good command trait, really.
Yeah,
and then
good as they go.
Yeah, you can target a Sisters of Slaughter unit then with their command ability that's holier than 12 of a hero. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by that unit.
Yeah, so that's also good.
I
think
don't rank this one now over the others.
Well, I think the Draichi Ganeth one's better for Witch Elves, and I think Witch Elves are better, right? So I think this is less good.
One as well.
But I do think, honestly, if you're going to use Sisters of Slaughter, I think you could definitely argue into that one. Like, if we're ever at a stage of the game again where you want to pile into things from 6 inches away to get round some ability, that one would be better. I think it's a good thing to exist for them.
Yeah. Well, of course, out the likes of these, we got the Calibron next. This is the one that rose recently with the Bloodstalkers and the shoot in the hero phase. So let's talk about these ones a little bit now. So the ability to teleport has changed a lot. It's now a command ability, so it costs a command point, which is going to hurt it. You've already had to spend command points to shoot twice and stuff, so that's another hit on it as well. And you use it at the end of the movement phase. Yeah. So, and you pick a unit whole within 12 of a Calibron hero, move from the battlefield, set up again anywhere on the battlefield, not more than 9 inches away. So it's stopping that hero phase teleport, hero phase shoot. It's costing command abilities anyway. But you can take units out of combat now.
Yeah.
With it. Which is...
It's a positive change for the game. It lines up with the Slaanesh one as well. No turn 1 hero phase. Extra shoot. Yeah. -1 to hit Calibron as well. Right now is probably as good as it's ever been with missile weapons right now in the game. It's probably never been better than it is now. Still does nothing against Luminets 5-up mortals, but it's a good ability. Yeah. So massive combo breaker on the Bloodstalkers doing all the shooting and all that, but still a very good command ability. Like you said, still good of -1 to hit. And then, they've got command traits, -1 to hit the general, which is good, to be honest. So it's a good command trait. Can't sniff at that. And that's in melee. So doesn't stack with the other one, but it's not bad. Now, Keltnar next. New. It wasn't in the old book. I don't know. I can't remember if it was in Broken Realms, but so you can retreat and charge. Always a powerful ability.
Always a very, very powerful ability.
I don't think it's an extra rend. I don't think it's an extra rend powerful, personally. But that's mostly because I like things that make units have better stats. Might not be everyone.
Yeah, then they've got a buff from a command ability is when if the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a melee weapon that targets a Keltnar unit is 1, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all attacks have been resolved.
Which is stupidly good.
Good, but
well, I think again we're in a shooting meta, so it's less good. A lot of armies that won't do anything against, etc. But the Nurgle version of this that came out in Wrath of the Everchosen, when you looked at it and did the maths, you know, a lot of armies in Age of Sigmar roll 120 dice at you or whatever, they just kill themselves. This is like bonkers good for that. The Nurgle one was nerfed to only be like if they roll any ones, they take D3 mortals. So I'm really surprised they basically just brought the same ability back. It's like if you're fighting a lot of melees, which hopefully the game will go back to again at some point, this is just far too good. And, you know, what will happen is the game will go back to melee, then this will be far too good, and then they'll have to nerf it again. I don't know why they've just made the same ability that they previously changed. You know, I don't know.
All right, fair enough. That's strong. Like, fair enough, yeah. Command trait, once without any movement phase, the general can summon a unit of Canary Harpies anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away. So 3 units, nice as well.
Yeah, 100 point-ish unit, I assume, still. And as command traits go, again, these command traits are often crap, and that's really good.
And then they've got the score 2 hits on a 6 artifact. So all your artifacts get with these little ones. So. Again,
Avatar or something on a cauldron with one of them, like doing a little bit of extra damage, is better than do 1 mortal on a roll of a 4+ at the end of the 5th turn battle shock phase that we normally get in these artifacts. So.
Yeah. I think the last one we really need to talk about the Xanthar Kai. We just reviewed it in our Marathi review on the podcast. You know, it's just the same as it was in the Marathi book. So it's all focused around the snakes. So
we say, but that was 3 months ago in the real world.
I suppose so. So you get to get an extra. You get an extra hero gets an extra artifact. The command ability is +1 attack for melee weapons on the snakes. So that is a really good command ability.
Yeah, like it is. Yeah,
really good. Like, and then little command trait. Unit within 3 of the enemy on a 5 will to take D3 mortal wounds at the end of the combat phase, and then -1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target the bearer. So not bad. 2 little abilities there, really. So I thought they were okay. I'll do Warscroll battalions now because a few have gone. They've been removed. They're not here anymore. But otherwise, they're the same, and they're the same
ones still there. Right.
Yeah, they're there, and they're all the same points as well.
Before we go too far in it, just talking about them temples, that for me is the biggest change in the book. Them temples because there's a bunch of good ones now. Like, I still think Hagnar is the best. The 5-up thing is too good.
I'm convinced now that like the range is. Really
it is harder, but I mean, even just having 1 unit that you can stick in the middle of the table with a 5+ rerollable save is still so very good. But I do think that the one with an extra rend and +1 to hit on the charge, that's like really big combat buffs. Extra rend is a huge deal. You know, you stick that on witch elves and then mind razor them. Like, there's nothing there not murder them when they go, and that's before you start going your hero phase with them as well. So I think that's really good. I think Kylabron's new teleport is much better and easier. -1 to hit with ranged attacks is always that was always what people tried to do. Was whenever ranged attacks were a big deal, they'd try Kylabron instead of Hagnar. But Hagnar was just always better anyway. Now Hagnar's a bit worse, and Kylabron's a bit better. That's definitely more of a choice now. And the other ones in there as well. The snake one's obviously good, but the other ones are all playable as well. Like, they may not be as good, but they're not useless. They're playable.
I am interested to see what the more dedicated Daughters of Khaine players, start to come out with after they see this. Which ones they go to, which units they take, because there's so many changes with points and that in here as well. There's a ton. There's an absolute ton.
Great changes. That's what you want in your temples and your Space Marine chapters and whatever we call these things. Just make them all playable.
Yeah, really all brought back up to date there, haven't they? So
yeah.
Okay, so shall I go over the Warscrolls then?
Yeah, well, you're just about to do battalion. Sorry, weren't you, as well? I cut you off.
Oh, I had nothing more to say. They're the same. They're there.
Okay. Yeah.
They're there. They're the same. They're the same points. They've lost a couple of them, which weren't ones that we're seeing them play. So I think...
classic. We've still got Cauldron Guard, we've still got Slaughter Troop, and we've got Viperic Guard from the new book in here now as well.
So, It's all there. All right, so War Scrolls. There's a lot of little changes on these War Scrolls. Lots and lots of little subtle ones and a couple of bigger ones to go on as well. So my notes are actually in a little bit of the wrong order here. So if I stumble, forgive me. Let's start with Marathi.
Yeah.
The Shadow Queen's actually changed since Broken Realms. She lost a point of rend on Heart Render.
Yeah, which is a great change. I'm really happy to see that because she didn't need to be a combat blender and indestructible, and she's still incredible in combat, but she's just a bit less dumb now.
Yeah, we didn't want her at Rend 3, like Rend 2.
Yeah,
she can be buffed.
She can still buff herself for all that stuff, but 1 is much more where she should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one up is the Bloodrack Shrine.
Yeah.
And along with the Bloodrack Medusa itself, some of the changes on here is the Bloodrack Stair has had its range increased by 2. So it's now 12-inch range, not 10. So that's good. Yeah.
Little minor buff. But you said these have gone up in points, though, as well.
So these have all gone up a lot of points for the big ones on the shrines. So the shrine is 50 points more.
How many points does that make it now, the Bloodrack Shrine?
Let me flick to the back of my book. So the Bloodrack
Shrine... You write down plus 50 points, but not the actual points cost in your note?
Yeah, Bloodrack Shrine, 160.
No, that's the Bloodrack Medusa, surely. Right, not the Shrine.
What am I looking at here?
Yeah, the Bloodrack Medusa is 100. And the Bloodrack Shrine is 160. Okay, yeah, Bloodrack Shrine 160.
Yeah,
is that correct points cost for that unit?
Was it 110 before? Just confirm for me then. I've not wrote like wrong, but anyway,
can't have been 110. The Shrine with 13 wounds and a 5-up save, and all that damage, and it casts a spell and can unbind 2 spells is 160 points. That's a crazy cheap points cost. What is going on there? 13 wounds for 160 point caster with respectable melee.
Was it 110
really super well pointed? It can't have been 110 before. So that unit's really good, right? Forgetting what's changed, that's a really good unit.
I love the point where I do my points review at the end again as well. I'll check back.
Yeah.
But, okay. So
it does beg the question. If that unit can be 160 with 13 wounds, why is Slaanesh paying 150 for a 5-wound character with less abilities?
Shrine was 210, they've said.
Yeah, it's come down 50 points.
Yeah, I've just put a plus instead of a minus. There you go.
Yeah, it changes how you view the unit, that, doesn't it? This is what happens when we go live.
All shrines went down. All shrines went down? What?
So that is absolutely mental nuts. But on the other hand, a lot of these units that are like 13 wounds or a 5-up save and some abilities, they should be cheaper to make them playable. But that's mad good. They're super tough, very hard to kill for its points, and has got quite a lot of damage on it. I mean, there's 10, 16, there's 20 points of damage on that unit as well.
Well, the spear, it's got +1 attack on the spear as well.
Yeah.
So that's got an extra attack given to it. It was 3, now it's moved to 4, I believe. I'm looking at something else right now. And then the drop-off's a bit worse, though.
Yeah.
It's just the way the damage table works it's hurt it a little bit. And the Whispering Claws 6s are mortals now as well. That's a new rule. So.
That's just generally mad. I mean, it's a caster. It's a caster with a very good spell. It's got an aura that does mortals, a ranged attack that does mortals, and 20 points of renderless melee damage. And it does mortals on the charge. And it's got 13 wounds for 160 points.
Yeah.
That's
what? I've literally lost the plot. All these are cheaper. That is so good. Wow.
Yeah, that's mental. Okay, right. Yeah.
This is 2 o'clock in the morning homework while the kitten's trying to eat my face.
Oh, there we go. Well, this is now just live reacts, right? This is just live reacts now. Why? There's a lot of units in the game that have that level of abilities and do a bunch of stuff, but when they've got a lot of wounds, they're normally a lot of points. So you compare that to the 400-point guy from the Slaanesh book, who's also got quite a lot of abilities, better. But like, why is that so cheap for its wound count?
It's really cheap.
13 wounds for 160 points. That can go quite happily charge into combat and do some damage and put out a bunch of mortals while
It's a wizard as well.
Yeah, while casting spells. No wizard in the game gets like the wizards in Cities of Sigmar were nerfed to be 120 points, and they've got 5 wounds and it's got 13. Is that a joke?
Yeah.
Oh well, we're going to be seeing a lot of Daughters of Khaine on the tables anyway.
Yeah. The Blood Mac Reducers next as well. This has come down 40 points. I've got down here. So the Blood Mac Reducer as well, a lot cheaper, and it's got the changes that we've just talked about as well, the stairs and the attacks as well. So
yeah, this was really a good model already. I like this at 160 points because it's got actual like decent combat damage. It's a wizard. And it's got some combat damage and like a big range there and stuff. And that was actually for 160 points, a decent hero. So now it's what, 100? 110?
110.
All right, they've gone a bit mad with the points here, haven't they? Compared to the Slaanesh book where everything's 20 points.
100 points for a Blood Rack Reducer now, 100 points.
Yeah, how can like that Blood Rack Shrine is 160 points. The new Slaanesh characters are 150. And I've got 5 wounds and less abilities. This is mad. Mad. All right, yeah, let's carry on. Yeah.
That is crazy, isn't it? Like, I take it still, this is a live reaction. I'm taking this in. I was Everton's loads more points last night at 2:00 in the morning. Anyway, the Iron Scale next. This has come down a little bit as well. It's 30 points cheaper. This is a really good model for the snakes. It's a really good buff model. It's got that super important command ability, which is it can still run and shoot, run and charge, and you do 2d6 run rolls instead of d6 run rolls. It's an amazing command ability.
Already good at its old points, and why is it 110 points? Why are these so cheap? Like, characters have been going up for a long time, especially characters that had like a command ability or a spell plus another ability have been going up for a long time. So why is this gone down to 110 points? Capable in combat, multiple abilities, mortal wounds. Like, wow.
So this next one as well, right? Morgareth the Bloody. So this has come down 60 points, my notes say.
Shadespire Warband, isn't it?
Shadespire Warband, yeah, 80 points now, right?
Yeah.
It's got Witch Brew.
Yeah.
Which has changed a lot. So, Witch Brew has been nerfed now. So, the start of your hero phase, you pick one Daughter Khaine, you're holding 12 the small strength of Witch Brew. If you roll a dice, add on 1 to the roll for each of the following abilities this is gained. So, this is, from turn 2 bonuses, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. But it's on a 5+. They can reroll wound rolls for melee weapons and get the battle shock that they had before. But tier 1, it's a 5-up roll, unless you've increased what you've gained from your from the
level of the buff, like rerolling all wounds, is just huge. So a roll for the payoff, like rerolling all wounds and being immune to battle shock is pretty incredible. Regardless,
she's 80 points with me with friends, right? And the Hag Queen is 100 now.
Yeah, 80 points for a 9 wound Hag Queen,
and the
which
other
previously used to be considered too cheap and got nerfed to be more expensive. The same person definitely didn't write these 2 books.
Yeah. They got the blade cove that go with it have got a bow and stuff as well. So, hot. Yeah,
defo. Got some of them Shadespire Warbands in stock. Yeah,
I don't know.
Better get some of them in.
Yeah. I'll be
also include cheaper than an actual hag with more stuff. Like, these are always pointed out of being playable. So why is this one not only not that? Like, that would have been fine at like 120 or 30 compared to a normal hag.
Yeah.
Why is it also on auto include over a normal hag? Like, okay, yeah, well, okay, next unit.
Yeah, so Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood. So Hag Queen on Cauldron, I'll change that plus 70 points to negative 70 points. So
70 points off.
70-point drop on this. So you've got the same things. You've got the Witch Brew nerf on there that we've talked about already. Yeah, I think otherwise it's the same, but it's a lot cheaper.
220 points. Like, you know, with the blood shield, which is, you know, one of the better kind of buffs in the game that you can get, really, like buffing your saves. Adding that onto Hagnar, 13 wounds for 220 points, completely acceptable. Very good damage output from them avatars. Brings the Witch Brew, and shoots things. I mean, and is also a priest. I mean, I think that model's. I think the old version of this was too many points, probably.
Yeah.
Other models in the game that did similar things were all lots of them were too many points. So this is probably a more reasonable number for what it does. It's probably a bit too cheap. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong, but it'd be nice if all the rest of the units in the game that did stuff like this would also come down to acceptable points values.
Mad in it. So many on the main changes. Next up, the Hag Queen. We talked about the changes to Witch Brew already.
Yeah,
it's 100 points instead of 90. So
great model, great abilities, very powerful buff, and you can get her for 20 points cheaper with mates.
I think you're talking like if you're in Hagnar, it's 4+ turn 1 instead of 5+. So yeah.
I think a lot of people were, well, depending on my raw thing. Oh no, that's a turn 2 1, isn't it? I think a lot of people are already taking one Hag Queen anyway since the old days, you know, of them being nerfed. So I think a lot of the time now you're just going to see that Morgwaite's blade cover on the table as the one Hag Queen, aren't you?
Definitely. Well, why would you not? So Slaughter Queen next. You know, on the Cauldron and on foot. So we've got changes for the command ability here. This is now wholly within 12 to fight twice. So it's got a wholly within instead of just picking a unit within range. So tidied up rules. They've given it +1 bravery as well for whatever reason.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Maybe that's to tied into the Mind Razor one. I was thinking like they were scared to put it bravery 8 because of the average bravery of units back then, but now it doesn't matter, and they've given her a more respectable bravery because she's a hero. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that went that deep. I mean, this is the important one, right? This is like one of the things that makes Daughters of Khaine so good. Is this command ability
60 points cheaper?
60 points cheaper, yeah. And you know, again, 270 points for this with the blood shield. With that, like, if you're running it in Hagnar, this makes you want to be closer, but so does the Hagnar ability anyway. So this is being pushed by units of 30 witch elves now, basically, right? That's what's happening. You're getting into combat, you're murdering stuff, and it's cheaper. Like 60-point decreases just never happen. Like, this is just like crazy level of stuff. So very just surprised, and continually, like, it's not just one unit, it's just like every unit that we go past.
It's all these big cauldrons have really been dropped down. They freed up so many points in the army.
And I've just realized what you did at 2 o'clock in the morning. You had the books the wrong way around when you were looking at the points changes.
Well, I had the app actually I was using to do it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, whatever. I wrote them the wrong way around. So, what can you do?
Yeah. Interesting.
The app is usually the new and most updated thing, right? Which is probably what I've got in my head compared to the old. So, yeah. Right, what's next? After the Slaughter Queen, we've got Witch Elves, Sister Slaughter, gone to some of the units now.
Yeah.
I've got the change to... There's a couple of subtle changes to Witch Elves. So the bravery bonus that they got from the... What was that from? Reroll battle shock tests from the standard bearer. Okay?
Yeah.
So you used to get reroll battle shock tests. Now you roll 2 dice and discard the highest. So
right, okay,
a bit better, but Battle Shock, you know. So
no, I think you've got that the wrong way around. The new book is reroll failed Battle Shock. The old one must have been roll 2 dice and discard the highest.
Right. Okay.
Looking in the book. Yeah.
Yes. Have I got the right book? Yeah, I've got it.
You got the right book. Yeah, it's got a snake.
A little change there, one way round, and their bucklers now are add 1 to save rolls.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to say they had a 5+ save.
Yeah. I found that quite interesting. They're getting away from this like fixed thing that confuses rules and just saying +1, which is definitely better.
Affects like rerolls and stuff in some situations still, I think, which
I guess so.
Which is about as well. So Sisters of Slaughter. I don't know if I've got any notes for changes on Sisters of Slaughter.
I think you've missed one on the Witch Elves as well, as they used to get +1 attack from being within 12 inches of a friendly Daughters of Khaine hero, didn't they? And now they get +1 to wound instead.
Right,
so
okay,
they've been... So that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not actually that big a nerf, but it is a very small nerf to Witch Elves. It means they're rolling less dice, but you know, when you do the maths on going from 4 on 4s to 3s in the wounds, it's pretty decent as well. So their spike potential's gone down more than their attack potential, but obviously it makes Mind Razor slightly less good on them because you haven't got 4 2 damage attacks, you've only got 3.
It's the point changes, which is interesting here more. But with these 2 units, the Sisters of Slaughter and the Witch Elves, So the discount's gone on the Witch Elves. So these are it's 100 points for 10 Witch Elves now.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be 120 and 300 points for 30. So it's like front loaded now. And the Sisters of Slaughter are just 120 with no discount. Yeah.
So the normal Witch Elves though have got better because you can take your 10s cheaper.
Yeah.
And the Sisters of Slaughter got a bit more expensive. Yeah, that's interesting.
And if you're taking blocks. So
which you are.
Yeah. Or are you now? You know, they've front loaded the discounts, they've pushed MSU a little bit more. So quite a change. We didn't see many discounts in the Slaanesh book either.
Or any. Do you mean they all went everyone up by 50 points a unit? Yeah.
No, I mean for big units.
Oh yeah, that has gone. Yeah, that's a good shout actually. Yeah, they lost all theirs as well. I think Witch Elves,
promoted an MSU style when that Slaanesh, depravity gaining, was really good against MSU. So interesting.
Yeah. Witch Elves. I always thought bucklers were better on Witch Elves because you had the theme of never dying, and all you wanted to do was push the theme of never dying even more, even though their save is crap. And I always thought that was good because they basically had 3 attacks a model anyway. But now, if you take the bucklers, because they've lost the double extra attack now, the buckler actually takes away more as a percentage of their attacks now. So I think that puts me more onto both. And particularly if you're playing that temple with the rend, and everything, you definitely want to get even more out of the attack damage. So I could definitely see wanting to switch up your equipment on these now based on what you're playing. Like Hagnar, I think you'd be wanting to run shields probably, but in the other one you'd be wanting to run knives potentially, or you might mix and match. A lot of people did that before as well. But that's good. So it changes the thingy a little bit. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why Sisters of Slaughter are more expensive. I definitely think these 2 things are very comparable, and I actually think Witch Elves are better still.
The Sisters of Slaughter's, part of things really good though, right? Like I've always liked Sisters because I like what that brings to the table, and how much it changes, the dynamics of a game. But I'm with you.
20 points is a big increase. 20 points is a big difference though.
It is. But got loads of points from their heroes now. You can buy what you want. So
yeah.
The Khaine Shadow Stalkers are a new addition to the Battletome, but you will have seen them from the Warcry warbands come out. Don't think we've talked about these on
we've not
on air before. What a unit, hey Ian?
Yeah, they're brilliant, aren't they? Like, I remember when they come out on Twitter, loads of people were like, "These are crap," and I was like, "Are we reading the same war scroll?" Like, yeah, like, yeah, they're. I mean, they're not. You can only take 18 of them at a time in a unit, right? So they're limited. You know, you can't do any crazy buff stuff on them as efficiently because they're only that. But 6-inch range weapon that does mortals on a 6. 18 shots, 3 mortals. Some good attacks. Decent attacks in melee as well. 2 attacks per model. Not particularly spectacular, but when you add the missiles on top, it's 3 attacks per model. But the main thing being they teleport and you get -1 to hit them as well. Like loads of abilities. I think in this book
really good when they go off and do that teleport thing. I think they really beat up some of those other units you want to fight around there. That -1 to hit, huge and that. So
yeah. I think the only thing for them is they compete with Khaine, which are like the best objective stealing unit in the game, pretty much.
Less models though.
Less models.
And teleports every turn, all game, not just once.
Yeah, exactly. They're different, but Khaine, come in and then take the objective immediately because they move after the shooting. So I still think Khaine are better at that. These are a bit different. They're tougher. They're tougher for the points because of their buffs. They can keep teleporting around, which is a big difference. Although the Khaine are very fast as well, and these have got obviously got the little ranged attack in there as well with the mortals. So yeah, they're in the same sort of slot, I think, but they are a really good unit.
Yeah. Really good, good. There's been quite a few changes to the Khaine as well, so there's some differences there with points and whatever as well. But they're unity all day, and they've just got the keyword for the army. They're not one of these like war cry war bands that don't quite fit
all that where they didn't fit in properly. Yeah,
they're just in. All the abilities on. So the Doomfire Warlocks have had a lot of little changes. So they've got +2 range on the crossbow. So 12, not 10.
Yeah.
Leaders got +1 attack, not +1 to hit. They've got +1 to wound on all their melee attacks as well. So they've gone from a 4 to a 3, etc. They get +1 casting roll now, while they've just got 5 models, not 10. So you get it natively when you just buy the unit you've got. But the spell range has gone down to 12 from, I believe, 18. Points have come down as well. They are... How many points are they now? Sorry. Don't seem to have made that note for some reason. What are they called? Doomfire Warlocks. 120. I believe they were 140, right?
Yeah. Solid little unit, these. And 2 attacks, 4s and 3s round 1 in combat. 2 attacks each with a ranged attack. They're a wizard. +1 to cast and unbind. And somehow 30 points cheaper than a unit of Seekers.
Fast.
Which have got no range, no rend.
And all them really spell strong as well.
Yeah. They do more damage in melee than Hellstriders. They're 20 to 30 points cheaper, and they've got a range attack, and they're a wizard. Like, boggles the mind. Like, the difference in these 2 books is absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, bit of a buff for the Doomfire Warlocks. Never seen a lot of table play. Maybe they will now. I don't think the stat changes are what's going to tempt you, but maybe that they're a little bit better casting now. Maybe that the points are cheaper.
I think you saw them. You saw them in Odd Armies just as something to carry Mind Razor when people weren't running Marathi a lot of the time. And also, you do this trick with like units like that where you cast from the back model of the unit. So it's out of unbind range, but the front model of the unit can unbind enemy spells. And, 120 points for a wizard is the cost for a wizard nowadays in a normal book. That's 120 points for a 10 wound wizard. That's also a cavalry unit that can actually fight in melee as well. It's just a lot of utility. And bringing that Mind Razor if you're not taking Marathi, which you're not going to all the time. It's a really good unit that definitely could or should see play.
Yeah, that's good. Then the Avatar of Khaine, it's come down 10 points. It's got some new buffs, +1 to prayer rolls and +1 to bravery buff. So Holy Within 12 for the bravery and Holy Within 9 for the prayers. So
interesting.
Good buff.
Yeah, 130 points for a 9 wound 4-up save model as well, with like good melee attacks. I mean, it's not going anywhere for the first few turns, but those prayer rolls on turn 1 are often where Daughters of Khaine go, failed on my prayer rolls, and +1 makes them all, especially since you can reroll ones at the Iron Circle, like auto cast for at least one of them. But again, 130 points. It's got 9 wounds. It's not wound efficiency that you normally see. It's got a 4-up save. It can't do anything for a couple of turns. But if you Hagnar, turn 2, it can move, and it moves 9, so it catches up quick, and it's like real murderer in combat. Like, it's actually the adding +1 to prayer rolls to that suddenly makes it really attractive, because before it was just a melee combat beater. But that's really super interesting.
You can just animate that right from the start of the game, right?
I think it's turn 3 they animate, isn't it?
Doesn't say that now. So it just says animate. If you've got a Daughter of Khaine priest, it can chant this prayer.
Oh yeah, that you can do the prayer to animate it. Yeah, I'm just talking about the normal animation thing that happens on turn 3 from the table, where all the avatars just animate on their own.
Well, that's not here on this one, though. This is this one on the throne.
It's in the allegiance abilities. It's the allegiance abilities that do it.
All right. Okay.
Animate all the avatars. So because you're already one ahead from Hagnar, and obviously you've got things that can bring it up anyway. That's not really. That's not really. Zealot's Rage 10-3. That's not really unanimated for much of the game. And if you want to make it move turn 1, which you probably don't need to if it moves 9, that's really good. +1 to prayer, super interesting model. Cool to see them on that mechanic actually being used instead of accidentally being on the cauldrons as well.
Yeah,
I like that.
Good. Well, the prayer buff's really good. So
yeah.
So next up, there's Blood Sisters and Bloodstalkers, which have just had some points changes. Really, well, only the Blood Sisters. So they've come down 10 points, but there's no unit discount. So it's 520 for 20 of them now instead of 480. And they've come down to 130 points, I believe, from 140. Where are they?
They're just so good, aren't they? So good.
Yeah, again, but just that move to, MSU again, maybe. It's encouraged it a lot.
Yeah.
So, interesting. But now maybe the unit of 10, which you might want to take a bigger unit, a bit better costed now, 20 points cheaper for 10 of them. It's nice, that, isn't it?
Yeah, just super, super good for their points again, like just comparing these to the Bliss Barb Seekers, for example, which are 20 points more. I've got 1 less save for that 20 points. So, significantly easier to kill for that 20 points. And although these have got less shots, you hit on 3s and they do mortals on it on a hit roll of a 6 as well. And again, this is just the Bliss Barb Seekers really do a thing in their army, but these are just very cheap for what they do.
Yeah.
Very cheap for what they do. Good move as well to actually get them up into an objective or whatever when they need to do that, and they can't just sit at the back anymore. And 24-inch range as well. Just night and day difference between some of these units.
Indeed. Right. So last units now are the Kinrai. So big changes to the Kinrai Life Takers. Okay.
Yeah.
So first little one I've got down is the leader's got +1 attack, not +1 to hit. You die if they're not on the board by turn 3 now, and that's the same for both of them. So they can't hang around till the end of the game, which was something that they could previously do. Now, on a 4+, it can make a retreat move after all its attacks have been made.
Yeah.
Now,
it used to be a normal move, didn't it?
Yeah. So that's pretty sweet as well. And they've got +1 rend and +1 damage on the charge now.
Yeah. And they're 80 points.
80 points, yeah. So there's a lot of focus gone into making them a little bit better in combat and being able to pull out as well, what do you think?
They're brilliant, yeah. I mean, you get 5 of them for 80 points, 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, 1 rend, 2 damage is a really solid profile for that. You can charge them in and then immediately retreat out so they don't get hit potentially.
Yeah.
And they've got I mean, they haven't got many wounds. 5 wounds for 80 points, not that great, but you don't take them for that. You take them for the deep striking, don't you? And deep striking and fighting stuff. Like, I still don't think these
heart renders, though, didn't you? It's like,
I still don't think these don't do enough compared to heart renders like that. It's just because of that movability.
Yeah.
You don't want to run in and fight something and then retreat. The heart renders being able to drop, shoot something, and then take an objective is just so good. I still don't think you're ever going to take life takers. Like, stat wise, though, 10 attacks with 2 damage each and 1 rend is a lot of damage for 80 points.
Yeah, 14 11 because of the hero. 3s, 4s, round 1, 2 damage. It's decent.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't have other things in the army that were even better in combat, you quite happily take a max unit of them, go and charge them into something. Like, they hit really hard.
Well, heart renders have come down 10 points as well, so they're back to 80 as well.
Yeah. Don't think that is necessary.
Maybe, because I think those Shadow Stalkers are forcing them out as well. Like, but personally, I like that all game teleport 9 model unit over 5. Yeah. Like, I really like them. So yeah. Well, we got some new models.
The thing these bring to the game, the ability to just, when you play against Daughters of Khaine and you can't put a small unit on anything anywhere because they can drop this, shoot some shots, and then move in and take a thing off you, is just a thing nothing else in the game can do. This doesn't exist anywhere else in the game. And it can be you just lose the game on it, particularly when you've got 4-point home objectives. You've got to leave real things at the back to stop these taking you. And some army setup you don't have. The classic one for me with these was always direwolves. When I played Death, I'd have a unit of 5 direwolves on back objectives to take them turn 1. And against these, they drop, they kill 1 direwolf, they move in, you've lost the objective, and often the game. And it's just a massive game changer. Yeah, they're so good. And they're 80 points, which is a lot of capability. I mean, 80-point units don't exist so much anymore. A lot of the battle line and small units have all gone up to like 100 now. You're not quite getting these little cheap 80-point units, and certainly not these flexible units like this. So 80 is much like the rest of this book, in my opinion, a little bit mad.
Yeah. Some new models, Ian.
Yeah.
We have got the endless spells, and 1 endless prayer. So there's 2 of them spells and 1's a prayer here. Really, really nice models. Obviously the snake stand out. All these endless spell models are always fantastic, aren't they? So
could they come with a blood for the blood god in the box? This couldn't it? A pot of blood for the blood god.
Yeah, I've needed desperately. So great models. So let's start with the Blood Rack Viper. So it's a predatory endless spell that can move 9 and it flies.
Yeah.
It's got a casting value of a 7, and you set up wholly within 9.
Yeah.
When it's set up, you can make a move as normal. So after the model is moved, the player who moved this endless spell must pick 1 unit within 1 of it and roll 3 dice. For each roll that is equal or greater than that unit's wound characteristic, 1 model from that unit is slain. And I believe that is 40 points. That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, if you play against an army with, these 40-point things normally do like D3 mortals, endless spells, and you don't really get played. That will, on average, kill 2 models in a 1 wound unit, or 2 models in a 2 wound unit as well. Is still the average. At which point, that's actually like 4 mortals. That's okay.
Only hits 1 unit going.
Yeah, 1 unit. A casting value of 7 as well. And it's not that fast either. So yeah, I don't imagine you'll see this competitively. Probably ever, but it does look like it's on a reasonably sized base. So if that is ever a thing that you want to do for some reason, is base block things, it could be in there.
5 wound hero, roll 3 dice, 1's a 5 up the dead.
Oh right, okay. Yes, that's very good.
Obviously that is good.
Yeah, for some reason I just didn't roll into that there.
I just didn't think of that.
On average, on average that will kill a 5 wound hero more often than it doesn't kill a 5 wound hero. But it's also very slow, as well. 9 and 9. You're not getting to anyone's heroes with that. So
it doesn't make it that good, but it's
Yeah, but it does a thing. Yeah, it's probably not going to be played, but it could be played, and it looks very cool.
Mm-hmm. Next one is Blade Wind. So predatory and the spell. This one moves 12 though, so a bit of better movement, and you set up only within 9. You make a move once you set it up as normal. And this one is each unit that has models passed across, and each other unit that is within 1 of it at the end of its move takes D3 mortal wounds. And in addition, do not apply cover modifiers to save rolls for attacks that target units that are within 12 of this model, and that affects yours and theirs.
It's been interesting, that, isn't it? 40 points.
It's a respectable on the spell. It hits every model that moves over. It's got a decent range, 9 and a movement 12, and it's 40 points. It's a
decent debuff as well. Decent debuff. And whilst I don't think it's particularly great for 40 points, everything in this army is so cheap that if you wanted to get it in there, you could. They've also got a very good spell lore, though. You know, they've got the like +1 to be wounded in there. They've got like really good Warscroll spells like Enfeeble and Foe. You know, -1 to wound and all that. They don't really need endless spells to cast. They've got enough amazing spells already.
There's a good point from the chat there by Poor General. 100 mil base on that snake. So another way, you know, it's going to be really difficult to use.
That looked quite big. So that's another thing. You're still not going to see it. Yeah, but I think you could maybe see, you know, if someone had the points left over for a toss-in, though, Blade Wind could be a good toss-in. Again, -1 save on things that are in cover is situationally actually quite good as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you know, does do some things.
So Heart of Fury.
So this is super interesting.
Yeah, this one's interesting. So it's got a lot of words, but basically it's an endless spell. But it's rare, right? In your hero phase, 1 friendly Daughters of Khaine priest can attempt to summon this invocation. On a 3+, it's successful, and it's set up wholly within 12 of a priest. Now, I believe you can do this in addition to the other prayers from reading back, and, you know, they say, like, prayers from this list and Warscrolls.
Yeah,
so
in the same way you can in basically every other book other than Fire Slayers.
I think so. So you could subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successful attack that targets a Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 of this model.
Super powerful.
Yeah, and at the end of the battlefield, 50-50 disappears.
50-50 it goes. Yeah. +1 if there's any avatars of Khaine, though, so it's you know, it vanishes on a 1 or 2. If there's any avatars of Khaine within 6 of it, which seems a bit difficult.
70 points?
80 points. 80. It's very expensive, yeah. Like
very expensive, very strong ability.
Yeah, you summon that with a Slaughter Queen on a Cauldron of Blood. You stick it next to her with the 30 Witch Elves she's next to as well. They all get -1 damage to hit them. You've got more chance of it staying for the next turn then as well. And yeah, I mean, if you've played against Coalesced Seraphon, you know how powerful that -1 flat damage is. You know, some armies just no longer function. Armies that are full of 2 damage models have the damage halved. They just can't hurt you anymore. And this army is already very tough, depending on what it does. 80 points.
I think the thing is, though, like, it's 80 points. It's a 3+ to get it off. And this is an invocation roll. Like, so is that... It's an invocation of Khaine. It's not a prayer, really. So
you can't get your buffs on it.
Probably none of your bonuses work on it from what I'm looking at. And then it can go away. So, you know, you set it up, you try and set it up, and then you hope it's there for your opponent's turn. Obviously, you can set it up, then charge, and, you know, it helps you there, right? But you're about to charge.
It's set up within 12, so if you're in charge range, you can, and it's got a 12-inch range, so you can definitely get this onto your unit that's about to charge dead easy. But 80 points is a lot, and everything in this book is like super dumb level cheap. And this book is very likely to be an S-tier book, I think, based on that. And one of the good things about books like this that are so super cheap is things like this that are 80 points and have some drawbacks that you might maybe not want to run. You can afford to run it because you've got so many points. And also, there's not always a lot to do at your last 80 points. Like, you might want to throw in Kinnerai, but you might have already taken them in your army. So you could definitely get this down. It's a freebie, doesn't use up a spell slot, cast or whatever. I think it's very powerful. You know, this on top of Hagnar saves and all that kind of stuff, like the likelihood of that unit being taken off. But then situational, some armies, it does nothing against this ability.
Yeah.
So, you know,
tough.
Doesn't help you getting shot by 60 bliss barb archers.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of 1 damage stuff about, so
yeah.
Well,
it's good.
I think I don't imagine the nerfs outweigh the points drops. I think the nerfs are you just playing the game the same way everybody else has, and the points are
mental.
Really low.
There's no real nerfs in this book, right? There's no real nerfs. There's a very slight change to Hagnar, which still leaves it as the best temple and one of the only ways in the game to get a 5+ rerollable ward save.
Yeah.
And the change to Witch Elves attacks still leaves them as one of the best blender units around. Loads of buffs to go on them. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks really, really good. I can't wait to see what people's lists end up looking like, because I think there's a lot of different units in this game, in this book, that could be good now. I think the armies might look like really nice and varied on the battlefield. Is this front-loaded discounts going to lend people to be doing MSU stuff? Which temple do the players end up, jumping into? I know our WhatsApp group was pretty alive with people discussing things yesterday when some leaks were coming out from this as well. There's probably a lot of points to play with. I imagine I'd be really, really excited as a Daughter of Khaine player reading this. Looking at the million different options I've got to go with, and them taking away things that are really good, like the teleport and shoot 20 guys in the hero phase. Shoot twice. Taking that away and allowing you to be playing maybe some more interesting lists or more options.
So good. Yeah, I think. It's easy for a book to be well internally balanced when everything's undercosted. Let's not beat around the bush. All this stuff is undercosted, and it's certainly, whether you agree or disagree that it's undercosted, it's certainly undercosted in the face of the points in the Slaanesh book.
I think the undercosted in that there's a couple of standout units that have got far too many wounds, etc., for how many points they are on that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if the cauldrons and that did need a points drop. They were a lot of points. When I was writing those lists for that last view, I was like, gosh, these are a lot, and
they do a lot though. They
do a lot. Maybe that's okay.
Utility, big chunk of wound. I don't think the Bloodrack Shrine for 160 points with 13 wounds is a mental points cost. I don't think that means you're going to see them. I don't think that means everyone's going to start spamming Bloodrack Shrines necessarily, or maybe even playing single Bloodrack Shrines potentially. But the fact that
you say that though, Ian, because
they could be spammed, yeah. But what I'm about to say, the points I'm going to make, is that the fact that they've put a 160 point character with a bunch of abilities in the game with 13 wounds means that you should look at that and go, okay, this is still only maybe a thing that we're going to play. We don't even know. You couldn't tell for sure whether that's a unit that you're going to play or not. You might. So out of all the units,
I can't wait to see the lists that come out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. So that's going with internal balance. There's a lot in that book to play, isn't there? There's a big selection of heroes do different things. Do you want an Avatar of Khaine for them premium 2+ prayer rolls and an extra melee beater that does an awful lot for 130 points? The more I think about that unit, I actually think it's incredible, because the melee attacks on it are crazy as well.
Yeah.
And I do love sure thing rolls for things like prayers.
Yeah.
You've got Marathi in there, which brings an element to the army that most armies can't even contemplate or don't have ways to deal with, and so all they can do is play around her. And they've also got all these melee, absolute blender melee units running charge all over the place. But then on top of that, they've got all these shooting components as well. So like you say, this is one of those books. A lot of the time in the past when we reviewed books, it was like, and here's the 3 army lists you're going to play. And they were 90% accurate to what everyone was just going to play. Whereas this, you can legitimately play basically anything. Do you want Kinnerite to steal back objectives? Do you want Doomfire Warlocks if you're not taking Marathi to get your spells in? Do you want a range component to the army or not? How big's your range component? Do you want the battalions to make it do more? There's loads of valid ways to play this book that will all make it a top tier book.
I'm just looking at the back of the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, which has the avatar on the back, and
Yeah.
+1 prayer isn't on that because I didn't have that on my notes. Just the bravery.
Yeah, it's only the actual avatar statue itself that's got it.
Yeah,
which I think is cool because it gives you a reason to take it.
No, that's just what I was thinking about. I like that. Yeah, you know, obviously, because you were saying you might see it, I was like, well, would you? Because you're just going to have the other thing.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah.
That's,
also, as well, you know, battalions. Good choice in battalions. Battalions have gone up in a lot of books, and again, drawing parallels to the Slaanesh book where they're like 160, 180. These are all like 120.
Yeah, all the same points they were.
Yeah, you know, this. You're gonna have so much in this army. I think mitigations to this army being pretty bonkers. You can shoot them a lot with a lot of these new units. That said, they can play Kylebron quite happily and make that significantly harder. And the army is so cheap; they're easily putting 90 Witch Elves on the board and all of the toys on top of that as well. 90 Witch Elves with a 5+ save, Blades of Bucklers, -1 to hit them, awesome Hagnar saves, Shield of Blood. Easily 2 of them cauldrons now in the army. With that, 2 of them cauldrons giving you a full bubble of 4+ saves, and we're only at 1,500 points doing that. You know, we had a witch on top and then Marathi. You know, I think that was what I've just said.
When I was writing the lists for that last, you know, trying to fit Marathi in it and new points and still have, you know, big blocks of guys and all the cauldrons and all the buffs and all that, you know, I was struggling, you know, but, you know, just the drops are huge, you know. Yeah,
and that's another thing. You know, they've got Marathi, who's one of them, the super strong model, and you can now fit in with Marathi all the models that you want, as well as the cauldrons and all that. You can still have that whole classic component of the army where it's a load of witch elves and all their buffs, and Marathi at the same time.
Yeah,
because everything's gotten so cheap, and still take your toys. So, yeah, I mean, I think initial reaction, I would say that book's just probably S tier, just raw points efficiency and all those super powerful things it can do. Very tough still. You say you can just shoot it off the board, but can you really shoot off 94+ save 5 up sisters? Probably not before they get to you. You know, and whilst dealing with Marathi at the same time and all the spells coming in, very good book. And I do feel that is going to make the internet reaction to the Hedonites book probably quite bad.
Yeah. The points differences, man.
Yeah, if you look at the Hedonites book and you say, okay, everything's gone up. I did this when I first read the Cities of Sigmar book. Loads of the units were like 140, 160, where you'd traditionally have expected 100. Maybe we're seeing units start to get a bit more expensive. And I think in a lot of ways they have across the board, a lot of the more units that aren't just basic battle line. But then you come out with that, which is just the opposite, which is just everything's just stupid cheap. All you're going to get is a bunch of people who are really upset that you're
maybe not super cheap, but really massive discounts. Like
discounts that they didn't need though. Like the changing the temples is great. Really opens up. Nerfing the Hagnar a little bit. Could have been nerfed more, I think. My opinion. They could have lost the reroll to saves. They could have said this doesn't stack with going to a 5-up. You know, they could have done something.
Just took it away, but
just took it away, yeah. But you know, they could have done something in there. But if they'd just tweaked all that stuff, stuck it all in a new book, give you all these new great options to play with, and reasonably costed it all, it would have been a great book. But as it is, it's going to be too good.
Yeah.
Again, I reckon. But there we go. Let's see what else comes out. Let's see what else changes and more new books coming out, and see how it all balances out. We might not get a chance to play with all those Daughters of Khaine models until some more stuff changes in real life, which might balance it all out.
Well, Daughters of Khaine, I have been keeping up to date with. I listen to the Owen Jackson show every Monday, and I haven't heard much about Daughters of Khaine. You know, bar that Queen's Gambit one, I'm not hearing them getting mentioned all that often. So maybe we'll hear more about them. But I think Daughters of Khaine always just had that, like, they're the same as they've been forever. They were always good.
The stigma attached to them, didn't they, as well, for playing them for a while. And
it's getting older news now. But, you know, Ben Curry, just like last time we played a season of Physical Sigmar, you know, they just run wild. But, you know, they've
never been not amazing. They've always been amazing. And this book just makes them more amazing. So
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's just see how some of the, you know, how the stringing out plays and how your buff's dropping off and what have you, and changes to Witch Brewing. some of the consistency is gone. I think the reroll prayer thing wasn't around anymore, or reroll. No, it was reroll ones that is still around.
Yeah,
but,
still there. Yeah.
No, man, it's
very good. It's very good, undoubtedly.
Very
If
good.
you own the army already, it's a good time. You might want to rejig it, get some new models in, get some snakes, some of the new characters, loads of options, loads of ways to play that book that would all be as good as each other. Really exciting for Daughters of Khaine players, and there are a lot of people with this army already. Good time to get the army. Contrast exists now, so you can like realistically paint them as well. I love painting flesh with contrast. I like the opposite now. I actually glue unhelmeted heads on things on purpose now when I'm painting things with contrast. Yeah. So like, maybe this army a bit less scary to try to paint. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the Hedonites still. Like, I think 3 keepers or maybe 4 keepers with Shalaxi or something with a bunch of archers and that new summoning and the new locus has got a lot of potential. Like, all these shooty armies really don't want Keeper of Secrets, like running into them and just murdering all their shooty guys. Turn 1. Like, shooting armies also don't like units coming back onto the board either, because they're on like a clock before stuff gets into melee to kill them. Yeah. And having your own shooting on top of that as well with the Blitzbarb Archers, I think is going to be really good. So, looking forward to that army. If you're out on delivery today, I am going to order a box of Blitzbarb Archers just to assemble some, I think.
So get them ordered and pick local delivery so it all goes in the app. Anyway, if you've listened for this long and you're still tuned in, thank you so very much. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like it. And if you want to hear more from us on YouTube, we've got a lot of plans, a lot of new things coming up with this. Subscribe, and you can keep up to date with all that as well. If you are thinking about making any purchases we talked about today or any other purchases, you can use justplaygames.uk, where the link is also in the video's description. We, as well as Games Workshop, we're, big friendly local game store. We've got a great range of hobby products, Green Stuff World, Army Paint, Vallejo range is massive. So we've got loads of really good choice there. We've got super fast shipping, super great service. So please, we'd appreciate it if you would check us out there as well. Thank you for everybody who joined us today as well. Thanks for all your comments. This will be available as a podcast as well. So it will be getting put up on the podcast side of things, but I guess if you've listened this far, you've already heard it. But if you are a new listener, we have a very popular Age of Sigmar podcast as well called Just Saying. I will link that in the video description as well. You can check out all our back content there. We normally cast very regularly when, maybe we've got more to talk about. We'd not be playing a lot of TTS, etc. ourselves. So lockdown has made our lives very challenging with time, so you quite have the freedom for that as well. So please, give us a like, subscribe, comment if you like this video. Got any questions, ask them. Try and get back to you in the comments as well, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.